Okay, the board is now in session. We'll move on to discussion item 16, affirmative litigation against social media companies for their role in the youth mental health crisis. Clerk, can you please call the speakers from the public?
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 22 requests to speak on item 16, 8 in person, and 14 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 4 e-comments, 3 in favor, 1 in opposition. Any individuals that requested to speak on item 16 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with the individual in favor, followed by those in opposition of this item. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. We'll be calling you in groups of 3, so please listen for your name. I'd like to invite forward the speaker in favor, Tara Djordjevic. Thought I was going to get that right. Followed by the speakers in opposition, Michael, Brando, and Mark. If I've called your name, please come forward. You'll have 1 minute to address the board, and I ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Hello, my name is Tara Djordjevic, and I am the current co-chair of the Student Wellness, Education, and Resources SWARE Committee, which serves all of the students in the San Diego Unified School District. SWARE vows to represent all students in San Diego Unified in the fight against the youth mental health crisis. As a high school student, I'm here to speak in support of item 16. I've been on social media for a couple years already, and I've seen the extensive amount of cyberbullying and negativity these platforms spread. My family does have a history of smoking. As a young child, my mom always made sure to take any opportunity to veer me off of that pattern that many of my family members continue to succumb to. I've seen countless amounts of warnings on smoking packages to know that I will never smoke a cigarette in my life. Seeing those drastic warnings on cigarette packages have made me aware of all the damages that smoking brings. If we have warning labels on social media websites which accurately represents the negative aspects these platforms hold, I can assure that we can veer off young students from spending such a large amount of time on these platforms. With that, I support item 16.
Thank you. I'd like to invite forward 3 additional speakers, allegedly Audra, Oliver Twist, and Mike. I've called your name. Please come forward. As the speakers coming forward, I'll call the remaining speakers in person, Consuelo and Brian Rumbaugh. Called your name. Please come forward.
Hi, Oliver Twist. So I am in opposition to this. I feel like that we should be limiting our government, and sometimes I feel like that they look at litigation as a cash cow so they can do other things. And if you are going to really talk with social media, yes, it is a problem, but I would say, like, let's start with government. And here's an example. Here's an MTS post where they are targeting youth. And this one, it says, grab your bestie and ride transit with epic prizes. Today kicks off the Y2K Summer Challenge for youth. Post your vids or pics on Instagram and TikTok and tag us. Those of you who don't know, I'm very involved with human trafficking. I spent the weekend at a hospital with a human trafficking runaway at-risk person, and she actually used free public transit to get along in her very at-risk journey. So please rethink this, rethink social media, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Like final call for the speakers in person, allegedly Audra, Mike, Michael Brando, Mark, Consuelo, and Brian Rumbaugh.
Okay, still Brian Rumbaugh. So, Jim, what I will say is that social media is kind of one of those albatrosses, kind of like me. You know, I pretty much view it as a very unique phenomenon that has occurred in society. I do believe in minimal government. I do want to rethink things. What I can say from my heart is social media right now is something that either we utilize or it's a weapon that quite possibly could be used against our republic, our way of life. And, you know, that same message that I've come here for borderline 2.5 years now, believe it or not, there's a very high social media component to it. I don't even really know the definition of that word, social media. I'm not really in it. I mean, I understand what it is, sir. I did look, I actually followed you on my X on your private account yesterday, you know, because I'm actually going to have to, unfortunately, you know, host spaces. Not unfortunately, this is God's, but you'll have an opportunity to listen to what it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Your time is up. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll start with our first caller.
Hi, my name is Vihan Bhardwaj, and I'm a high school student. 5 years ago, I downloaded my first social media app. At first, it was a powerful way for me to connect with my extended family, most of whom live halfway across the world. But as time progressed, however, and typical teenage ramifications set in, I entered a highly vulnerable phase of my life. And at that point in time, the definition of social media changed for me. Feeding off of my insecurities, I was presented with content that kept me hooked to my screen. And instead of connecting me, social media kept me disconnected as ever, keeping me lost and chasing the deceptively perfect lives the influencers I was targeted to. This is when I realized that social media capitalizes on vulnerability. It capitalizes on insecurities. It capitalizes on youth like me by using manipulative algorithms to create and perpetuate a world that doesn't exist, and to put that world in front of us to make us feel that the real world around us and the actual life we live is worth less. And that is why I commend Supervisor Lawson Reamer's efforts to hold social media companies accountable for their manipulated platforms, making the power they have used toward the good and enrichment of the world, not the reckless of my generation that.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hello, my name is Karina Pugh, and I am calling in today on behalf of the San Diego LGBT Community Center to express the center's support for the county's proposal to hold social media platforms accountable for their contribution to the youth mental health crisis. LGBTQ plus youth are among the most vulnerable populations who experience mental health crises, and social media can expose LGBTQ plus youth to online bullying and harassment due to their identity, impacting mental health outcomes. As a group that is already marginalized in society, LGBTQ plus youth are likely to seek community and affirming spaces online. However, this can cause cyclical issues leading to increased exposure to bullying and feelings of insecurity. Social media corporations must be held accountable and face consequences for their capitalization on vulnerable populations, and efforts must be taken to ensure the safety and health of those who use social media platforms. The Center is in support of item 16. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
More grandstanding, when will it stop? But, curtailing social media companies is a really good idea. Problem is it's more a federal thing than a local thing.
Can you please state your name?
Paula Bold.
Thank you.
And I don't think it even needs a $250,000 study if that is what is involved in exploring options. It's just another cash cow too, maybe. I also see that the resolution says, "This hereby resolves that the Board of Supervisors of the County of San Diego adopt a resolution in support, ... I prefer actual support, not just a resolution, rather than a resolution, which,
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Pam, number 16, no to pursuing or joining the already 475 other lawsuits against social media platforms. Tara, it's always fascinating when you do theater and masquerade now as a child-saving politician. Social media platforms can be harmful. Parents must fiercely protect their children. The child is dependent on their parents for protection. So, Tara, please consider your own vulnerable daughter and remove the dating site photo. It's impossible to support an individual whose ideas and actions are diametrically opposed. Every adult should want to protect children from harm, no matter the perpetrator or the perilous agenda. Local government is pushing social media, as the prior speaker proved. And local government's always looking for another payload.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
It's truth. This is another Tara campaign item.
You can't put lipstick on a pig, frankly.
On the news, Tara, so that social media is like a drug. If that's true, then are you going to help Joel with his addiction? And MTS is encouraging children to stay on social media and post their private transportation locations in exchange for prizes. That sounds like bribery and coercion of children, Monica. This item also references the U.S. Surgeon General. He replaced the former general who said on April 4th, 2020 that, quote, more people will die even in the worst projections from cigarettes than are going to die from coronavirus, end quote. That's relevant because the real youth mental health crisis comes from the lockdown nonsense that youth supervisors implemented. Children are still suffering the effects and are acting out that trauma upon themselves and others. The sooner everyone addresses those lies, the sooner we can all recover. Social media is but a symptom. There's also teachers and quacks encouraging children to label themselves as having anxiety and depression. Those labels lead to Big Pharma getting rich, and the teachers love obedient zombies. Besides, political theory designs about the county trying to profit off another frivolous lawsuit. Why don't you end this now if you care about...
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Ann Riddle here. I called in regarding item 16 because as a parent and a grandparent, I am clearly aware of the role that social media plays in our young people's life and how much it affects their mental health. I'm hopeful that this opportunity to understand that role can be spread to a larger group of items that affect our young people's health. I think it's wise to remember that we are a county that does not have enough youth drug treatment programs and needs more mental health facilities. And this is important, the youth drug treatment programs, because most drug use, 90% of it, begins before the age of 20. And when we look at social media and its effect on mental health, let's remember that one of the heavy advertisers on social media is marijuana, and particularly our own 5 counties.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Social media is a tool for sharing information and entertainment, but it can be harmful if not used in moderation and with age-appropriate guardrails. The American Psychological Association reports youth are spending an average of 5 hours every day, with some spending double this amount of time on social media platforms. And there's also connections between social media use and reduced well-being, such as mood disorders like depression and anxiety among young people ages 18 to 25 years old. Our county health statistics data affirms that with our recent 2022 health equity...
I was on the phone to speak, and I called on time, so why can't we...
Okay. Pause. Clerk Andrew, could you please...
Consuelo.
Do not disrupt the conduct of the meeting. You've asked a question. I'm going to get an answer. Sit down.
Thank you. The board recessed the meeting and indicated they were going to return at 1:20. The board returned at 1:25, and I called all the individuals. I called all the individuals that requested to speak in person twice. I called your name twice. We gave individuals an opportunity to speak.
Okay, so...
I was sitting right here, Andrew.
Okay, your name was called. You did not come up. Okay. Your name was called. Your name was called. You did not come up. Please stop. Okay, this is your first. This is your first warning. Do you want to have to leave the meeting? This is your first warning. Thank you very much. I will have the clerk come talk to you, someone from the clerk's office to come talk to you out in the hallway, and we will deal with this later. Please do not disrupt the conduct of the meeting. Thank you. Andrew, could you send someone to please, if you'd like to speak further, about this, you can go in the hall. Someone from the clerk's office will meet you. This is your first warning, both of you. You both now have a warning. Do not speak again, or you will be dismissed from the meeting. You can go out to the hall. Someone will meet you there to discuss your concern. Do we have another caller? Okay. That was the last caller. Please go to the hall to discuss your concern. Thank you. Do we have any additional comments from any members of the board on these items? Go ahead. Joel, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to extend my appreciation to Supervisor Lawson-Remer for bringing this important issue forward today. We now have a generation that has had access to smartphones and social media for most, if not all, their lives, and who are experiencing concerning mental health-related issues. I've seen reports of similar mental health-related issues with the increase of availability of marijuana. There is overwhelming evidence that marijuana use can negatively affect mental health, particularly among adolescents and young adults. Studies have shown that regular marijuana use is linked to an increasing risk of mental health disorders, including depression, anxiety, and psychosis. There is a growing body of research indicating that marijuana use, especially among our youth, can have severe implications of mental health. According to the California Department of Health, there's nearly 65,000 cannabis-related visits to the California emergency rooms by those aged 15 to 30 years old in just 2022. The New England Journal of Medicine study reported that almost 50% of people with cannabis use disorder have other psychiatric conditions such as major depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder. Researchers in Denmark, working with our National Institute of Health, found that cannabis addiction is tied to the development of psychiatric disorder schizophrenia. A study of nearly 7 million Danish people aged 15 to 49 found an association between cannabis use disorder and schizophrenia. The association was stronger for males overall, especially at the ages of 16 to 25-year-old. So in addition to holding social media companies accountable, I'd like to request a friendly amendment to add the following recommendations to this item, directing county staff to also explore similar options related to the marijuana industry to address its impact on youth mental health and include that information in the report when they report back to the board.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Can I get some clarity on your proposed amendment? Would be to do some additional research on the impact of marijuana's impacts on youth mental health?
As we're looking at what impacts our youth, we should include not only the social media, but the impacts of marijuana. Because we know young men 16 to 24 years old have a huge spike in schizophrenia by heavy use. And so I'd like to see, if we're going to protect our kids, there's far greater, more emergency room visits based on marijuana than based on social media.
I appreciate the spirit of this. I think that the goal obviously is to do everything we can in our power here in San Diego County to protect the mental health of our young people. I think the core of the proposal here is to look at litigation options that we could pursue to hold these social media companies accountable for their addictive and deliberately addictive algorithms. But if you're just asking to do some
we should look for lawsuits.
Data, I'd be willing to look for data. I don't think it's appropriate, given the current status of the marijuana industry, to be pursuing lawsuits. But if you just wanted to look at potential data, I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Well, I can't support something that's inconsistent. So on one hand, we're going after social media, but we're not going to protect our kids, where the incidences of marijuana is far greater than the incidences from social media. So I don't want to have a media, I'm not looking for a campaign stop here. I'm talking about protecting kids. In my district, more kids are impacted by marijuana than they are, statistically, than they are by social media. So for me to move forward and support this, it would have to be inclusive of everything that impacts our kids and look at the opportunities for lawsuits in the same fashion. We have medical studies. And by the way, this is just a small tip of all the studies that are out there. This is a known fact. And not to pursue protecting our kids, I think is a mistake. So I'm giving you a path to my vote. You don't have to take it. I get it. But to me, I want to do what's most impactful of the youth in my district. And this is far more impactful.
I appreciate the spirit of your comments. I can't accept that as a friendly amendment. We have a Brown Act problem because we didn't notice anything about marijuana, but I would be happy to have that conversation at a different board meeting and would love to talk about that with you. So I'd like to make a motion for the amendment.
Can we get an opinion from Claudia?
Sure. Because there's no noticing of anything to do with marijuana.
There's no the reference on mental health for youth is focused solely on social media in this board letter, and thus certainly the board could direct us to return back with agendize that issue on a future agenda item. But as to this item, because it's narrowly focused on social media and youth mental health, it would be beyond the scope.
Would not the nexus be on youth mental health?
Certainly the youth mental health is the part of the social media issue, and certainly when the direction of this subject was so specifically prescribed, it seems to be potentially beyond that.
So I mean, I would be happy to have this conversation in the future. I don't want to jeopardize this specific item with a Brown Act concern, so I'd like to make a motion for it to move forward as currently written. That would be my motion, but happy to have that conversation at a later date. Yeah. Okay, so I've made a motion, and Supervisor Montgomery Steppe has made a second. We have a comment by Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I appreciate this being brought forward. I think social media is definitely something we need to be concerned with. It's drastically affecting mental health for our youth, along with many other things as well, but it also serves as distraction in our schools. Our youth, I think, are subject to violence, bullying, anxiety, and much more in social media and the internet. I think they've always been subject to that, but now the internet is the vehicle. I'm not sure, though, that a lawsuit, which is really the option you're giving here, I'm okay with putting a warning label or something like that on there, but that a lawsuit, and I realize you're an attorney, so there's your toolbox, but I don't know that that's the best course of action for us legally. I don't think it's a county's role to regulate in big national companies, but like fentanyl and human trafficking, we went out and we did an education program, and I think an education program would be much more appropriate than going right to a lawsuit. I believe kids and parents need to be educated on the risks and harms of mental health issues excessive social media can cause. And going over this item with my staff, I don't have young kids anymore, but it's sort of like, where does government end and parenting start? Parents should be given the tools for success. What I learned is that you can block certain websites or access to your kids' phones. Already, you can even, one of my staff members said, hey, she gets a notification every time her kid logs on or tries to download another app or tries to use certain apps. So maybe if an education program I think would be more appropriate at this point in time rather than suing somebody. And we do that at least for San Diego County. We did it with, like I said, with fentanyl and human trafficking, and I think that would be a better course than at least take that approach instead of just going straight to a lawsuit. So I appreciate the intent, but I disagree with the approach, and I'm not going to be supporting it, but I would support an education program on this.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I just want to build on what you're talking about on fentanyl. I think the motive for me behind bringing this item really was the work we've done on fentanyl, the opioid litigation that we pursued against various pharmaceuticals because they deliberately went into doctors' offices and prescribed drugs and convinced doctors to prescribe drugs that they knew were going to create addiction in our communities in order to increase their profits. And it was a profit model that was driven by creating addiction and using that addiction to drive their own profits and bottom line. And they knew, they had a lot of documented evidence that these opioids were deadly, addictive and deadly. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this case around social media, is that there's a huge, overwhelming amount of evidence that the social media companies know that their algorithms are addictive, and it is extremely well documented that that extensive social media use is having very, very, very negative impacts on mental health in our communities. So I do agree that education is important, and what I'm hoping to do, what I was hoping to do with bringing this lawsuit is that we'd be able to fund those education campaigns. The way that we funded all the work we've done on fentanyl is the $120 million that we won with our opioid litigation. So we've taken that $120 million that we've won for our opioid litigation and reinvested it in cracking down interdiction, funding the DA's task force, funding our education programs in schools. So to me, it's both and, not either or, of how do we hold accountable the social media companies for their deliberate profiteering at the expense expensive people's well-being in their lives, and then ensure that we are able to recoup the costs that are being imposed on our communities by this extremely destructive behavior, and then utilize those funds to try to tackle the root of the problem. So I understand that you might not be interested in supporting this today, and I respect that position, but I did want to put this in context that this is very much modeled on the work we've done around fentanyl in order to have both accountability for the big corporations who are responsible, but also to have resources in our community to address the root of those issues. So thank you very much. And if there's no additional comments, then clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, seconded by Supervisor Montgomery Steppe. Please vote. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, with Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Desmond voting no, that motion fails due to a tie vote. And pursuant to the board's rules of procedure, the board may continue the item for consideration at a future meeting. If the board takes no further action to continue the item to a specific date, then the item will be placed on the agenda for the next regular meeting on August 27th, 2024.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we're moving on to item 15, discussion item, which is receive and accept the preliminary report increasing Medi-Cal reimbursement rates to improve healthcare for nearly 1 million San Diegans. And this, as a reminder, was in response to Supervisor Anderson's request to have regular report backs from the committee that's working on Medicaid. So Supervisor Montgomery Steppe and myself asked staff to prepare this presentation so that we would have transparency and communication to the whole board on what's going on with this committee work. So with that, please train staff, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. The Medicaid Ad Hoc Subcommittee was established by the March 12, 2024 board action titled Increasing Medi-Cal Reimbursement Rates to Improve Healthcare. Since that time, the subcommittee members have convened 6 times with county staff and contractors to discuss and advance the board's recommendations. The Health and Human Services Agency, Medical Care Services Department, is leading staff efforts for this board initiative. Medical Care Services is uniquely positioned to support this initiative because of their clinical leadership team, experience with direct service programs, and a dedicated San Diego Advancing and Innovating Medi-Cal, or SDAIM, unit. The following slides highlight the accomplishments and progress for each of the approved board recommendations. I'm joined today by Dr. Jennifer Tudor, Interim Chief Medical Officer with the County Medical Care Services team, who will share progress and updates on this board initiative. Dr. Tudor?
Thank you, Caroline. Good afternoon. I'd like to share some of the work we have been doing to identify opportunities, strategies, and new sources of funding to optimize Medi-Cal payments to San Diego County. I will begin with county-provided programs. The focus of the Medi-Cal Transformation Assessment is to determine the county's readiness to contract with Medi-Cal managed care plans and receive payment to provide enhanced care management and community support services. This assessment is funded through the California Department of Healthcare Services. The goal of the billing feasibility assessment is to determine the county's readiness to bill third-party payers, including Medi-Cal, for services such as those provided at the county's public health centers. In addition, the county has engaged subject matter experts to research Medi-Cal and Medicaid policies and the impacts of leading practices in California and the nation. Next, I'd like to share opportunities we have explored to increase Medi-Cal reimbursement for providers in the San Diego County region to improve access to health care for Medi-Cal beneficiaries. Staff are currently holding listening sessions to engage regional stakeholders and gain a first-hand understanding of how Medi-Cal reimbursement rates impact healthcare providers and their patients. The county is coordinating meetings with state and local government leaders, labor organizations, hospitals, community-based organizations, community health centers, healthcare workers, and consumer advocates. We are reviewing Medi-Cal policy and best practices to discover opportunities to enhance Medi-Cal reimbursement for providers throughout the region. The county's 2024 legislative program now includes support for legislation and administrative actions with the California Department of Healthcare Services and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services that would lead to increased Medi-Cal reimbursement rates. I'd like to share what we have heard from frontline providers and patient advocates during our initial listening sessions. Providers emphasized that access to care would improve if Medi-Cal reimbursement rates better approximated the cost of providing care. Across the board, providers informed us that their Medi-Cal reimbursement rates were lower than their cost, in part due to time-consuming administrative requirements. They stated that this impacts their capacity to expand services and discourages other providers from accepting Medi-Cal insurance. For example, an OBGYN informs staff of the challenges she faces when trying to find a Medi-Cal cancer specialist to treat her patients with gynecological cancer. Medi-Cal rates are set by the state through the California Department of Healthcare Services and by the federal government through the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The county does not determine Medi-Cal rates, with the exception of the county's mental health plan. The Medi-Cal payments to hospitals, physicians, and skilled nursing facilities contain multiple components or layers, including a base payment or rate, a supplemental or targeted payment, and managed care organization tax and intergovernmental transfers, which are other mechanisms to optimize payments. This slide shows the steps and processes the ad hoc subcommittee has used to evaluate potential levers to optimize Medi-Cal reimbursement. In step 1, the committee explored opportunities to enhance the managed care organization tax. California legislature approved use of this tax to increase payments for primary care and non-specialty mental health providers with the recent passage of the state's fiscal budget. Other applications of these funds will be determined by a statewide MCO tax proposed ballot measure in the fall. In step 2, in partnership with contractors, we've confirmed that the rate range intergovernmental transfer funds are maximized. In step 3, in partnership with contractors, we continue to explore areas where base payments are not yet maximized. In step 4, the ad hoc subcommittee is exploring opportunities to optimize supplemental and targeted payments. And in step 5, in partnership with contractors, we are researching policies and best practices in California and the nation. In summary, the left side of this timeline shows the work we've accomplished to date. The right side of this slide shows the work planned in the future. Moving forward, staff will hold additional listening sessions and a regional convening with Medi-Cal providers and stakeholders, and the ad hoc subcommittee will continue to meet. In September, we expect to receive the preliminary findings and recommendations for the Medi-Cal Transformation Assessment. We anticipate receiving these final findings in November for the Medi-Cal Transformation Assessment and in March for the Billing Feasibility Assessment. Lastly, staff will return to the Board of Supervisors with a final report of findings and recommendations. Pending any questions, this concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Before going to public comment, colleagues who
I can wait. I'll wait.
and I'll go to Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. 6 in person, 5 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 1 e-comment. Individuals that requested to speak on item 15 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with the individual in favor, followed by the individuals in opposition. Again, as your name is called, turn to speak. Mark. You have 1 minute to address. I'll ask.
My person uses the name Audra. I signed up on phone as well as in person, so technically there's only 10 people.
I have 11 requests to speak, not including your request by phone.
All right, well, and I had a request to speak by phone for the other item, and so you should have let us speak, because if you would have said beforehand that I can't speak on that item in person, I would have called in on the phone. So you guys didn't give people an opportunity to speak, and it's really sad because you sit here and act like you want to hear from the people, but it proves that when we're sitting in here, because it's happened before, and we were able to speak, and today you arbitrarily decided that wasn't the case, and then you're sending us out in the hall like Ryan's going to do anything about it. It's ridiculous because it just proves that you don't care what the people say. And I want to know how many illegal aliens are going to be benefiting from this. Because that's what happens, is that we're paying for these people to cross the border and get all of these benefits. And it's ridiculous. And then it's like the people that actually live here and pay towards things, you don't want to hear shit from them.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mark. Okay, I actually agreed with this one, only in the regard that doctors won't accept patients if they don't think they can get as much money as other areas maybe. So yes, the reimbursements is a good idea. However, on the other hand, Medi-Cal, there's a big program right now from Newsom to do pharmaceuticals for children, for people in general, and Medi-Cal covers this. And in that regard, I'm very, very against it. In fact, maybe not funding it at all. As Joel was talking about drugs and their effect on people and this has a lot to do in relation to 16 with social media and the mental health crisis with youth. Which is censoring of media. It's just a scam. But in regards to this, I'm more worried really about pharmaceutical drugs. I know a lot of people who were okay on LSD and stuff that weren't okay on pharmaceutical meds and became crazy.
Thank you. I'd like to invite for the remaining speakers in person and opposition, Consuelo, Brian Trumba, and Admiral. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Consuelo, so here's the deal with this. It's like you have Medi-Cal, you have doctors and providers who get that these patients are on Medi-Cal, so they will therefore opt for their patient to having an unnecessary surgery, like for giving birth. They get more money for having a C-section than just having a natural delivery and having the baby come when it feels like it's supposed to come. That's one of the things. There are so many confusion, rumors, and incorrect characterizations, the complexity of eligibility. It's just so sad because like what happens is people become misdiagnosed due to getting more money for a surgery they don't need.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
All right, still Brian Rumbaugh. So, so much for the marketplace of ideas that you were so proud of a few months ago. This is my country that I'm really watching, really circle the tube once again. And what I can tell you is that we are going to have a chance to change. We need to stand back and realize how it is we got here. I mean, I could show you one of those social media videos. Maybe I saw it on my little X channel. I really don't know. But it was really a pharmacist talking about how, this particular pill, let's hope it wasn't an opioid or Suboxone or whatever the hell their antithesis to opioid addiction is. But he was talking about how he buys that for $3. And if a person wants to come in and buy it from cash, he would sell it for $5. But the insurance company pays him $10. So he essentially gets a kickback even more when he gets it from the insurance company or they purchase it. It's the system.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Can I go? Okay, well, my name is Robert Rivera. I'm a veteran, and I'm also a father. And I just want to know, like, what's been going on, because it's like a lot of these invaders that we got now are on freeways. I don't know if you guys noticed, but those people are illegal. And so what are we doing about that? nobody has any answers for that. So I want to know what we're doing about that.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. Start with our first caller.
Hi, excuse me, Paul Bold. The recommendations sound like you want to give out more money for kicking the can down the road for at least 4.5 more months. I mean, most of your stuff is like delaying action. I'm glad that's in a draft. The report says on page 3, the county's 2024 legislative program has been updated to include support for legislation and administrative actions that will lead to increased Medicaid reimbursement rates for California. Yet on page 2, the report says you hired experts who are researching what is being done in other California jurisdictions and naturally to optimize Medicaid reimbursement.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
It's true. The sooner the government gets out of the healthcare business, the sooner we can have affordable healthcare here in America and stop driving to Mexico. Because admits that hospitals who accept Medicaid get ripped off when getting paid for their services. A private company could never get away with that. But because it's government, nobody gets locked up for running out on their bills. The county has the second highest population Medi-Cal eligible residents in the state because you guys allow incarcerated criminals and undocumented illegal migrants to get health care on the taxpayers' dime. This resulted in an increase in health care costs for everyone and the hospitals being overwhelmed. The other issue is that the Pandora's box of never-ending, always expanding so-called safety net socialist welfare programs was opened a long time ago, and most Americans no longer want to be responsible for their own health. Getting healthy requires self-initiated work, such as exercise and healthy eating. Rather than wasting $500,000 on a Medicaid landscape analysis where the landscape consists of a view where people are taxed more, I want an ad hoc committee that focuses on long-term solutions where people are encouraged to get off all government programs.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just want to take a moment to thank Dr. Tudor so much for leading on this effort. Also, to Caroline Smith, thank you. Ebony Shelton, we have our ad hoc committee meetings, and there are about 10 staff members there because this is a very complex and layered issue. And also want to thank the Vice Chair for your leadership and your ongoing work in this area and on this committee in particular. It really has been a pleasure to work with you all on this committee, and I look forward to the work that we're going to do in the future. We know that low Medi-Cal reimbursement has contributed to issues of healthcare access and equitable health outcomes for many years. So this work has the potential to truly transform our healthcare and social service systems across the region for over 1 million residents that are Medi-Cal beneficiaries. And I can speak to having had to be a Medi-Cal beneficiary at one time and how much different the quality of healthcare is. So I'm very dedicated to this work, and I look forward to continuing on. I do have a question that I need your impact on. I do appreciate the detailed update. We'll be voting to support the extension to spring of 2025, but I do want to request that if actionable strategies become apparent as we go through the analysis between now and the final report, that the county will take action, or at least we will be informed as a board where adequate resources and staffing are currently available. Can you provide input on that?
Certainly, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, thank you so much for the question. And yes, absolutely, we have opportunities through this ongoing work to bring things back both to the ad hoc committee and, if needed for further action, back before the Board of Supervisors prior to the end of the report date, should we need to do any of that to move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, if you need a motion, I will certainly make one at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to second that motion, and also want to just say thank you so much for the whole team, many of whom were not sitting here today, so please extend my gratitude for the very hard work. I think we're making a lot of progress. I think, we embarked upon this endeavor with the basic idea that we have 1 million residents in San Diego County who don't have adequate access to health care, but that's impacting everyone. The other 2.3 million who are not in Medicare, Medi-Cal, their entire safety net is being impacted because of sort of systemic underfunding due to the low reimbursement rates. And I think you all have done a great job of sort of teasing out where we do not have any additional opportunities to pursue higher reimbursement rates, but also really where we do. I'm really excited about some of the models that you all have identified of other counties that have really successfully pursued higher reimbursement rates for Medi-Cal in other counties in California, and have really strengthened the quality of healthcare access for the entire population in those regions. I think that's some of the work I'm most excited about, at seeing how we could bring some of those kinds of approaches here to San Diego County. So you guys are making a lot of progress. It's obviously super complex, but I think we're making a lot of progress. Also appreciate the feedback and the input of some of our stakeholders who I know you have been speaking with. A number of them wrote letters. I think we got at least I got a letter. I don't know if everyone else did. I received a letter from Sharp and a letter from Rades. So some letters from various stakeholders that are pretty excited about the work that you all are doing to look at this. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I'm happy to second the motion. And Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, with a second by Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. Please vote. The motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Okay, thank you. So now we are taking items 18 and 20 together. It's a discussion about 18, authorized competitive solicitations for interim housing and regional mental health clinician services. And item 20, receive update on the exploration of opportunities for enhancing probation staff wellness and mental health. As I said, these items will be heard concurrently. I'll give our team a minute to get in their seats. Okay, so we will first turn to the staff for presentations, then we will take any questions from the supervisors, and after that we will have any comments from the public. Thank you.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and members of the board, for many years our justice partners in San Diego County have collaborated with the probation department to implement new and innovative programming to reduce the number of individuals in the justice system and support their transition back into the community. Chief Probation Officer Tamika Nelson and I will be presenting on 2 programs that they have developed and maintained to fulfill justice-involved clients' needs, support their successful reentry back into our communities, the interim housing and regional mental health clinicians. I will turn the presentation now over to Chief Probation Officer Tamika Nelson.
Thank you, Deputy CAO Strong. With the ongoing crisis of homelessness throughout our nation and the ever-present mental health risks within our justice-involved population, the Probation Department seeks to continue to provide the following services through contracted community providers: interim housing and regional mental health clinician services. These programs and services greatly impact the treatment, care, and success of our probation clients and allow our staff members to support our clients' journey towards that success. The current contracts and authorities for these programs and services will expire in 2025, and we are seeking authority to competitively solicit or extend these services through contracted providers and plan timely for implementation. Since 2018, the Probation Department has contracted to provide interim housing services to clients ages 18 and above on post-release community supervision, mandatory supervision, formal probation, youth probation, and pretrial supervision. We are currently contracted with 9 community providers who host transitional housing at their sites throughout the county. Contractors also assist clients in enrolling in public assistance benefits such as CalFresh and linking them to social services such as Medi-Cal and homeless service providers to obtain permanent housing. This program has been beneficial to a client's journey through the justice system and transition back into the community. The interim housing program provides secure and stable housing to clients who otherwise would be homeless as they complete the terms of their probation. Having the security and safety of housing helps goals such as obtaining employment or education, receiving physical and behavioral health services, and obtaining permanent housing. During fiscal year 2023 and 2024, we had nearly 1,800 clients housed in an interim housing program, with over 300 clients transitioning to permanent housing and over 500 clients indicating progress towards life goals by the time of their exit. Our current contracts for interim housing will expire on December 31st, 2025, and we are requesting authority to re-procure well in advance of their expiration date to ensure enough time for solicitation, procurement, negotiations, and possible awarding multiple contracts. Since 2021, the probation department has contracted to provide for those youth on juvenile probation who are in need of We recognize the need to provide our youth population with the appropriate resources to address their mental health risk factors as they navigate the justice. Allows regional mental health clinicians and other contractor staff positions to assess a client's behavioral health needs and develop a case plan to identify the appropriate treatment options. Contractors will collaborate with probation regarding client referrals, the development of rehabilitation plans, and in support of positive youth development. During fiscal year 2023 and 2024, probation and our regional mental health clinicians assessed and built case plans for at least 90 youth needing behavioral health services. Additionally, there were more than 50 successful completions of clients being referred out for their needed services, completing their case plan goals, and receiving the treatment and care they need. Our current contract for regional mental health clinicians will expire on June 30th, 2025. We hope to continue these services to best serve and empower our justice-involved clients. I will turn the presentation back to Deputy CAO Strong.
Thank you, Chief Nelson. Today's recommendations include authorizing the Department of Purchasing and Contracting to issue a competitive solicitation for interim housing and regional mental health clinician services. Upon successful negotiations and determination of fair and reasonable price, award a contract for each program and service for a term of 12 months with 4 option years and up to additional 6 months if needed. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes our presentation for this item.
So have a presentation on item 20?
We do.
Okay, thanks.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and members of the board, the Probation Department aims to foster a culture of wellness within the organization. Supporting officers' physical, mental, and emotional health is fundamental to creating safer communities, building meaningful relationships, and providing better services to the residents of San Diego County. Numerous publications from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, the Department of Justice, public safety entities, and the behavioral health community all indicate that there is growing need to invest and provide wellness resources to those working in the profession of public safety and community corrections. On February 27, 2024, the Board of Supervisors directed the Chief Administrative Officer to work with the Probation Department to look for opportunities and resources to enhance staff wellness and mental health and provide recommendations to enhance the wellness program. Today's requests are to receive the presentation on probation's wellness program and staff recommendations for enhancing probation's existing wellness program. I'll now turn the presentation over to Chief Probation Officer Tamika Nelson.
Thank you, Deputy CAO Strong. Working in law enforcement and enhancing the safety of our communities can be a difficult job, one with higher physical and mental health risks than other professions. Physical health risks can include sleep disorders, poor nutrition, and poor physical fitness, and mental health risks can include post-traumatic stress disorders, anxiety, and depression. Studies have shown that when these health issues go unaddressed, job performance decreases, decision-making abilities are impaired, and departmental costs increase. Research studies have shown that approximately 10 to 17% of officers demonstrate symptoms of PTSD. In a national sample of officers, more than 40% screened positive for at least one sleep disorder. And data from the Federal Bureau of Investigation shows that contributing factors for reported law enforcement officer suicides over the past 2 years were relationship problems, depression, burnout, and experience the death of a close colleague, friend, or family member. It is for these reasons and many more that probation has developed a wellness program and seeks to enhance it to address our staff's physical and mental health risks. Probation's wellness program currently consists of a wellness unit, a peer support team, chaplain services, the honor guard, training opportunities, and contract support services. The wellness unit is tasked with developing, implementing, and managing a comprehensive wellness program, which takes a proactive approach when officers are in crisis, identifies ways officers and their families can be supported, and advances department-wide wellness initiatives. The wellness unit also provides access to support groups, therapy, counseling, workshops, and other activities throughout the county and contracted providers. The peer support team are volunteers within our department who provide emotional first aid to employees during their times of crisis or critical incidents and resources for professional help. The chaplain offers a presence of spiritual and emotional care and counseling for sworn and non-sworn personnel. The wellness program offers over 25 types of trainings and classes to educate staff and support their needs. Trainings can be about a variety of topics and to help address current trends and health risks. Probation's wellness program offers trainings such as suicide prevention and intervention, burnout and compassion fatigue, resilience through rest, and coping with grief and loss. These topics, among many more, have been identified by our staff and suggested by our training providers to support the variety of staff needs. During fiscal year 2023 and 2024, we had over 2,800 hours dedicated to these wellness classes with over 400 participants. The contracted support services include a staff support specialist on site at both East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility and the Youth Transition Campus to assist with needs that arise during shifts and confidential counseling for employees. This wellness program has been utilized by sworn and non-sworn many physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and occupational factors that impact our staff's well-being. Include motherhood and probation, or MAP, Vet Connect, peer mentorship, and employee counseling services. Motherhood and Probation works to help ensure a smooth and meaningful transition for working mothers exiting and returning to the workforce. Vet Connect serves veterans through proactive engagement and connection and offers support through healthy conversations and referrals to veteran-friendly services and resources. Both MAP and Vet Connect were created by probation staff for probation staff. Recent Academy graduates are assigned a peer support mentor that will follow up and conduct check-ins months after graduation from Academy, providing an additional layer of ongoing support. The Counseling Team International is a contracted service provider that offers virtual or in-person culturally competent counseling at no cost to staff. These services can be used alongside the county's EAP, Employee Assistance Program. We are working on a number of things to expand our existing wellness program, such as creating a wellness committee within our wellness unit who will consist of a variety of departmental representatives. This committee will conduct monthly wellness events and support dedicated wellness policy creation. Expanding the chaplaincy program to select, train, and integrate new chaplains, which will further create a ministry of presence and promote spiritual and emotional well-being throughout the department, and creating a department safety officer subcommittee to identify safety issues and concerns within the probation locations, which will assist in determining root causes of any issues, create solutions, and develop timelines for resolution. Further ways to enhance staff wellness is to increase training opportunities for the department and ongoing specialized training for the peer support team. Future trainings would include topics such as financial wellness, pre-trauma, and health and wellness. as our staff have identified and indicated their interest in having more sessions and seminars about these topics. Probation will continue to survey staff, collect feedback, and follow evidence-based trends on what training topics to add and prioritize. Finally, probation plans to procure a mobile wellness application. We are aware of apps that can provide 100% confidential support to staff and offer a wide range of resources developed by clinical experts with new content and tools added regularly. This provides resources and other materials in real time to our staff who will be accessible on their persons at any given moment. These recommended enhancements will allow probation to target multiple dimensions of wellness and support our holistic approach to improving our staff's physical, mental, and emotional health. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about the great work that the probation department is doing to improve wellness throughout our team. I will now turn the presentation back over to Deputy CAO Strong.
Thank you, Chief Nelson. Today's recommendations include receiving county staff recommendations for enhancing probation's current wellness program, to further staff's physical, mental, and emotional health. The recommendations from county staff include reallocating staff to the existing wellness unit, increasing wellness training opportunities, and procuring a wellness app. Probation will evaluate how to best reallocate staff to the wellness unit. Authorizing the Chief Probation Officer through June 30th, 2034 to apply for grant funds related to staff wellness and mental health, and to execute all required grant documents and related contracts. And waiving board policy B29, fees, grants, revenue contracts in regards to the department responsibility, full cost recovery, which requires prior approval of grant applications and full cost recovery for grants. This concludes our presentation, and we are available for questions.
Do any of my staff presentations? Thank you.
We have 14 requests to 8 requesting to speak on e-comment and requested to speak on items 18 and 20 by phone. Please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with the individual in favor, followed by those in opposition of this item, until it is your turn to speak at the podium. Mark? The board, and I'll ask you to please.
Experience advisors, sorry I missed this morning because those were all the items I really wanted to talk on. What she described as their burnout is exactly what a homeless person goes through on the streets. Anxiety, depression, can't sleep, can't eat, the entire thing. So you need to take that in comparison. I'm for this, yes, the mental health and helping people that are getting out of jail and and not becoming a criminal again. I wish they would have had this when I was a youth and I was young, because it would have benefited my life. And God knows what it would have ended up, and turned out to be. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the remaining speakers in opposition, allegedly Audra, Consuelo, and Admiral. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Mark, government will overwhelm the police working for them until they commit suicide. That's what you were talking about here, basically. There's a long history of this, of government literally giving their own military Agent Orange and experimenting on people with LSD. They don't care about their own citizens or their own soldiers, only their agenda and using everyone. You can see in the YouTube documentary, The Minds of Men, which is an incredible documentary.
Andrew, could you stop his time, please, for a moment? Is it stopped? Please speak to one of the recommendations. We want to make sure you're on topic.
Yes, I am. You're talking about health clinicians and the services they provide, mental health services.
Okay.
So I'm addressing mental health services.
Okay. Andrew, you can go ahead and begin his time again. Thank you.
Okay. So Minds of Men, it's around 2/3 of the way through. I'm sorry I don't have the minute and second for you here. But where they're talking about experimenting on children, burning their brains, and also Stanley Plotkin, the work he did on children. There's a long history of psychiatric disaster. Rosa Corey, part 1, you need to see that. Koire is Corey, and I'm out of time. 1 minute is not a Brown Act reasonable amount.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
It's less than 10 people, right?
No, it's 14, but it's 2 items, so technically it's 7.
patronizing.
Consuelo, I know this is very difficult for many in society to grasp, but government is in fact the reason for all of these issues. These issues are simple. Do you hear me? Simple to fix. But please recognize they're also extremely lucrative for government to keep going. The sheer fact that they point out GMOs, yet act confused as to why there are health issues, is just a major sign of how purposely dumbed down our society has become. More of our money being used to fund the problems they support and create. Don't you see it? There's no end to this dystopian nightmare. They will continue to do as they wish on our dime, only to keep us all in line and enslaved.
Next speaker, please.
All right, again, my name is Robert Rivera. I'm a veteran. I just want to say I'm opposed to this, and I don't agree with anything of what's going on. I'm here to support all my friends here, so I just want to say I support them. Thank you.
And just to clarify, your speaker slip is Admiral. That's you?
right.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My person uses the name Audra. So criminals running rampant, sitting here on the outside while you make criminals of the people so that they can go inside and then have a perpetual state of being involved in the justice system. It's just like, you know, human traffickers doing anti-human trafficking or like anti-cancer with the people who cause cancer. It's always a bait and switch, and, you know, it would be great if you actually cared about wellness, but you don't, because you actually care about ripping babies apart limb by limb, medicating people till they're, you know, can't even think straight, all while, you know, just virtue signaling like you're going to make things better. And it's sad because anything one day could be legal and the next it's illegal, and then you have a bunch of criminals, and it's a business. So that's the point of keeping people in the system continually. You never want to get them out, but that's why all of you should be in the system.
We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We'll start with our first caller.
Do another hit piece, Tara.
Hello, this is Catherine Red. So I have a lot of questions because there's not a lot of information here. Okay, there's 9 providers. What's the cost per bed right now for these existing agreements, and what do you expect the cost increase is going to be? How many beds are needed? Does everybody who needs a bed coming out of prison actually get interim housing? Because from what I know, that most people get going out from prison, and you know, the youth, they become homeless and are in our streets instead. And then also remember, and so is there like right now, is there like 50 beds or is there 500 beds? How many beds do we actually have? You didn't actually say that with the 9 providers. And then also remember that you have $356 million in unused ARPA cash that's supposed to go to the poor as part of COVID-19. And it could fund this also. So I would say that if you only have, you know, 10 beds or 50 beds, bump it up.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Wow. 1 minute for 2 topics sounds like a dystopian flash sale. It looks like we may have spent 6 months, this is 20, studying a problem we already knew what to do about. And I see research shows that probation officers stress from 2 primary sources, in their names. But now that we know for sure, let's enhance the probation staff. 18. This type of housing is needed. I hope it won't be like Windsor Point in Carlsbad, where a rehab center was located in a residential neighborhood. I hope you won't have a service provider like Exodus, which seems not to care about society. But I'm glad that this is a competitive contract, and it sounds like you're on the road to success here. Thank you. And I'm glad I completed my comment.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Truth, item 18, no to children receiving behavioral health assessment tests by government for educational, housing, or various social services. Behavior has no relation to housing. Yes, for substance abuse treatment, although I don't think anyone at the county really understands that program, because all these programs most likely lead to children being put on psychotropic drugs. There's zero details on these future 4-year contracts for housing and drug programs. There's not even a spending limitation, so no. Item 20, why are probation officers being required to do mandated overtime? Because youth supervisors demanded they get the deadly clock shots, and that made a record number of people leave their jobs and the state. So to improve the workers' wellness status, I would like all supervisors to get on their hands and knees, Japanese style, and personally apologize to every single probation officer for the stress their bad policy decisions have caused county workers. Then I'd like the probation officers, medical staff, and deputies to do the exact same thing to every dead inmate's family for the stress and permanent emotional physical damages they've caused them, like the Lisa Cerner's family. Good luck with your grant. No.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Only 8 speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any comments from any of my fellow board members? Okay, Supervisor Jim Desmond.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Appreciate it. And thanks for bringing this item back for staff. I appreciate, the probation staff and all the incredible work that you are doing. And I appreciate getting ahead of the problems and trying to get some of these things taken care of sooner rather than later. So happy to support, and I'll make a motion to approve both items 18 and 20.
Thank you. We have a motion from Supervisor Desmond and a second from Supervisor Anderson. Happy to support as well. I just want to thank the team for all the work. I know some of this was staff initiated, but some of this was also in response to board initiated action. I'm really looking to prioritize mental well-being and overall well-being of folks in our probation department. We know that your team is on the front lines, our probation officers are on the front lines, and there's so much that you do. It's a hugely difficult balancing act in terms of keeping us safe, but also investing in rehabilitation and reintegration. It's a lot, and I think this study is a really important step to making sure everyone's equipped with all the support and the resources that they need. So appreciate the work. I think this is an important step forward, and if no one else has any comments, please call the vote.
Thank you. Motion by Supervisor Desmond, second by Supervisor Anderson. The motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to item 22. It is our last discussion item. Receive update on behavioral health capital facility projects recommended for Prop 1 infrastructure bond funding, and authorize grant submissions and a formal process to issue letters of support. Should we wait for the team, or Caroline, are you on your own? Okay, we'll wait for Dr. Luke Bergman. Thank you.
While we're waiting, I'll just note for the record that we have 15 requests to speak on this item, 5 in person, 10 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 1 e-comment on this item. For any individuals that requested to speak on item 22 by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you.
Thank you. So we will begin with a request from, a presentation by staff, and then if we have any questions from the supervisors, we'll address those. Then we will go to public comment. Then we'll have any discussion from my colleagues before I call the vote. So turning over to the team, Dr. Bergman, Caroline.
Thank you, and good afternoon again, Vice Chair and members of the board. The passage of Proposition 1 will bring both change and opportunity to the county, with a particular focus on new infrastructure to support the delivery of behavioral health services to our communities who need it most. As directed by the board in April, today we are providing an update on the priorities we've established to inform county planning efforts for the Prop 1 infrastructure bond funds. We'll also bring forward the behavioral health capital projects located on county-owned properties that we believe are the strongest candidates for the grants due to their alignment with state and county criteria. Prioritizing the development of these recommended facilities will support increased capacity for children and adults with behavioral health conditions eligible for Medi-Cal and will enable them to be connected to the care they need. Due to the competitive nature of the grant funding, we'll also be requesting the board's authority to implement a formal process for local entities requesting county letters of support. Today, Dr. Luke Bergman, Director of Behavioral Health Services, is here with me to present the details. I'll now hand it over to Dr. Bergman.
Thank you, Caroline. Prop 1 was a two-bill package designed to modernize California's behavioral health care system by significantly transforming the Mental Health Services Act, passed by voters in 2004. The first bill, the Behavioral Health Services Act, directs a greater proportion of funding to services for people with the most serious mental illness and substance use conditions, and emphasizes housing for people with behavioral health conditions. It also shifts prevention funding to the state. The second bill is the Behavioral Health Infrastructure Bond Act, or the Bond Act for short. The Bond Act invests funds to support building more behavioral health infrastructure, such as treatment capacity and housing for veterans and others with behavioral health needs. Today's update will focus primarily on the Bond Act grant funds. The Bond Act establishes $6.38 billion in general obligation bonds and is allocated across three funding categories. $4.4 billion for the construction and development of behavioral health treatment and residential settings, $1.065 billion for permanent supportive housing for veterans with behavioral health needs who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, and lastly, $922 million for permanent supportive housing to support people with behavioral health needs who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Today we'll be focusing on the first category, inclusive of the $4.4 billion of behavioral health infrastructure grant funding. The funds will be administered by the Department of Health Care Services in competitive rounds through the Bond Behavioral Health Continuum Infrastructure Program, or BCHIP. To be considered, projects must add new capacity for community-based mental health or substance use treatment for Medi-Cal beneficiaries, advance equity, and utilize collaborative partnerships to meet the needs of vulnerable populations with the greatest barriers to care. While eligible facility types include a wide array of mental health and substance use facilities, it's important to note that the state will prioritize projects that establish new residential capacity. I'll now walk us through the rest of the bond BCHIP criteria. Projects for which BCHIP grant funding is being requested must meet a number of state criteria. BCHIP grant funding is only available for projects that establish new capacity to serve Medi-Cal beneficiaries. Funds will not be awarded to renovate or redesign facilities with existing behavioral health services. Entities applying for BCHIP grant funds must demonstrate project readiness, including site control, a sustainable business plan, a conceptual or schematic site plan, and stakeholder support. Match funding must also be identified for each project in the form of cash or in-kind contributions, such as land or existing structures, and the amount of match funding varies by entity type. For the county, a 10% match is required. Entities must also demonstrate county and Medi-Cal investment to support ongoing sustainability. Capital projects must be in one of three phases, which include Phase 1, planning and pre-development, Phase 2, design development, or Phase 3, shovel-ready. More points will be given to projects in the later stages of readiness. Finally, capital projects must align with state priorities, which include meeting urgent behavioral health needs for underserved populations, offering alternatives to incarceration and homelessness, ensuring access to care in less restrictive settings, and leveraging state and county investments to support sustainability. In addition to the state's requirements, Behavioral Health Services has also developed local priorities for capital projects. This includes ensuring projects requesting BCHIP grant funds support the regional distribution of care and health equity to improve access to care across diverse communities. Projects need to also align with priorities across the continuum of care in conformance with the Behavioral Health Optimal Care Pathways model. Locally, we would support projects that are able to leverage other funding or grants, support revenue optimization, and are sustainable through ongoing state or federal funding. Projects that establish innovative partnerships with other entities, such as hospitals, will also be prioritized. For Bond BCHIP Round 1 grant funds, referred to as Launch Ready, the state will award up to $3.3 billion, with $1.5 billion allocated for counties, cities, and tribal entities, and the remaining $1.8 billion open for all entities. The $1.5 billion will not have a regional cap, which will mean more competition. The $1.8 billion open for all will have a regional cap of roughly $264 million, with 20% set aside for state use. This is the earliest round, with applications anticipated to open this month and due in the fall. Awards will be announced in early 2025. Round 2 of BCHIP, referred to as Unmet Needs, will award up to $1.1 billion of grant funding and is open to all entities. It will have a regional cap of approximately $161 million, with 20% set aside for state use. We expect the request for applications to be released in May of 2025. For projects that are not awarded Round 1 grant funding, we would plan to resubmit them through this second round. Before we move on to the permanent supportive housing grant funds, we'll provide a quick overview of the behavioral health capital projects we are recommending to prioritize for Bond BCHIP grant funding rounds 1 and 2. Over the last several months, we reviewed the array of behavioral health capital projects underway, all in various stages of the planning and development process, to determine the most viable options for BCHIP grant funding. The first project we'd like to submit is the Substance Use Residential and Treatment Services Facility, or CERTS. Located on county-owned land, the new CERTS facility will establish between 72 and 96 new substance use treatment beds in the South region, depending on design. With local rates of substance use continuing to rise, the creation of welcoming spaces for treatment and recovery is a local priority. In 2021, 94% of people aged 12 or older with a substance use condition did not receive any treatment, indicating a significant unmet need and opportunity for engagement. This isn't about simply meeting established demand, it's about anticipating need and creating spaces that will motivate people to seek treatment. This project is currently in phase 1 with a total cost of approximately $27 million. In our efforts to leverage all available funding, we've submitted the CERTS facility for round 3 of behavioral health bridge housing funding, which is currently pending notice of award from the state. If awarded, it would support the development and operations of recuperative care beds within the footprint. The BCHIP grant funds would be specifically for the substance use treatment beds. The second project we recommend is the Children's Crisis Residential Care Facility. We know that we need more mental health and treatment support for youth and children. Nationally, there's a well-documented and concerning trend of increases in mental health-related emergency department visits and mental health symptoms among youth, including depressive symptoms and suicidal ideation. Locally, we can see this present in increased rates of emergency department visits for non-fatal suicide attempts or self-harm among youth 24 and under, up by 30% from 2018 to 2022. The Children's Crisis Residential Care Facility presents an opportunity for us to build the services our youngest community members need. Located on county-owned land within the North Central region, this facility will establish approximately 16 new treatment beds for children and youth with serious emotional disturbance who are experiencing a mental health crisis. This facility would complement previous board action in 2023 that accepted $8.5 million from the state to implement the Children's Crisis Continuum. Bond grant funds would help establish new capacity for these crisis services, as children's crisis residential beds do not currently exist within the continuum and are vital in ensuring young people in crisis can access the urgent care they need. The project is currently in phase 1 with an estimated cost of between $6 and $10 million. As mentioned previously, among the many capital projects we considered for this opportunity, the Substance Use Residential and Treatment Services Facility and the Children's Crisis Residential Care Facility are anticipated to be the strongest candidates for bond BCHIP funding, rounds 1 and 2. Not only do they meet all state criteria and priorities, but they are also high priorities locally, far along in planning, and projected to yield high impact across our continuum of care. We're also proposing the inclusion of a third project in our recommendations should the state expand their eligibility criteria. Currently, licensed board and cares are not eligible for the bond BCHIP funds. As you may recall from back in April of this year when we presented to you on the critical state of our local board and care capacity, this is an area of our continuum in need of new and dedicated capacity. To that end, there has been continued county efforts to advocate for the inclusion of licensed board and care facilities for the BCHIP grant funding. If the efforts are successful, we're poised also to submit the Central Region Community-Based Care Facility, or CBC. Like the other two projects, the CBC would meet the other remaining state and county priorities. The facility will be located on a county-owned site in the Central Region and establish about 148 new board and care slots for Medi-Cal-eligible adults experiencing serious mental illness who require housing within a licensed board and care facility. This additional capacity will help address the need for approximately 400 new licensed board and care beds in the region as outlined by the Optimal Care Pathways model. The CBC is currently in phase 2 and is estimated to cost between $55 and $65 million to develop and construct. As part of the process to pursue bond BCHIP grant funding, all entities must receive and submit with their application a letter of support from the local county behavioral health director. To ensure all projects seeking the grants adhere to state and local criteria and priorities, Behavioral Health Services is requesting the board's authority to establish a formal process for local entities asking for letters of support. Behavioral Health Services will develop the process and share the information through our website, public meetings and community engagement events, ByNet, and other ways to ensure providers interested in applying for funds are made aware of the process and can request a letter. The process will be finalized after the request for applications is released to ensure that it's aligned with all required criteria. Once the process is finalized, Behavioral Health Services will only grant letters of support for capital projects that fully align with state criteria, county priorities, and one or more state priorities. The last Prop 1 infrastructure grant is for permanent supportive housing, or PSH, which is distinct from the two bond infrastructure grants we've already talked about. This grant will award up to $2 billion to build permanent supportive housing for veterans and others with behavioral health conditions who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Separate notices of funding availability to include more guidance will be released late 2024 from the California Department of Housing and Community Development in partnership with the California Department of Veterans Affairs. Although detailed grant funding requirements are not yet available, we've already begun planning so that we'll be prepared to submit applications promptly. Within the existing portfolio of excess county properties, 5 sites have been identified as potential projects for PSH funding under Prop 1. Housing and Community Development Services will begin planning discussions with the Department of General Services and partnering property developers to determine the viability and eligibility of these sites for PSH grant funding. We'll also continue to look for other projects that meet criteria and plan to convene with community stakeholders in the future to help identify additional housing infrastructure development opportunities for the grant. In closing, I want to highlight just how quick the timeline will be for these 3 grants. As shown here, round 1 applications open this summer and will be due in the fall. We anticipate the other 2 grants will have similarly brief timeframes. It will be important to submit projects already well in development, and planning ahead will be key to leveraging these forthcoming opportunities. Our efforts to be proactive and strategic are informed by our previous experience applying for past B-CHIP grants, and we're working to position ourselves to be able to have as much time to work with the state as possible. In a time of economic uncertainty and large-scale policy shifts, which will have impacts on the behavioral health system of care for the foreseeable future, we are committed to working with the board to identify and pursue all available avenues to advance the continuum. Today's actions request the board receive this update on Prop 1 infrastructure bond grant funding and authorize the submission of grant applications to the state. In addition, this item requests the board authorize the implementation of a formal process for the Behavioral Health Services Department to evaluate requests for letters of support submitted by local entities and issue letters only for projects that align with state and county priorities and criteria. Thank you, and we'll take any questions now.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Go to public comment, and then we'll comments from the board.
16 requests to speak. Also note any individual that please dial into the to you. Individual in favor is called. Please come forward. Followed by
Pays with Liberty. That was really impressive. Supportive housing. And I was homeless on this 1 year in housing. I'd more housing. Thank you.
Please. Mark. Speakers in opposition. And Consuelo.
At least 10 or more. Limited to 1 minute.
Not a reasonable amount.
Begin. If you don't want to use your time, you can forfeit it, but you are welcome to begin your comments now.
Mark, so Proposition 1 was passed, including behavioral health services. That's $6.38 billion for 150,000 homeless people in California. That comes out to $42,533 each. And for half that much money, they could each have 2-bedroom houses or apartments that they're renting in Claremont. And Appy's Core, for a quarter of that amount, could print 3D houses for them, literally, for each one of them. And they'd own it, okay? So that's how outrageous and really stupid. Well, no, it's evil. You're not stupid. I don't accuse you of being stupid. Your government is evil. It's a program designed to destroy people and our society. And people need to see Rosa Corey Part 1. The real title says Behind the Green Mask. It's on YouTube. Corey is Koire. I suggest you see Rosa Corey Part 1, 2, and 3.
Excuse me, I asked to speak and I was told it was too late. I need to speak on this subject matter, and I'll wait.
Once we begin public comment on the rules of procedure, we no longer accept requests to speak on that item.
Consuelo, so let me just remind this board about Project 25. Everybody in the audience, look it up, Project 25. They were a program that had a 100% success rate. I've mentioned this several times here at the podium, and yet they were defunded by the government. They don't want anything working. They don't care about the success of the people. They don't work for the people. They are entirely invested on us being entirely dependent on them. Yeah, broken record. What else? Yeah, it's just like they create the problems and then they appear as the heroes with the solutions on our dime. When will people get it? Keep showing up, people. Keep paying attention to what, in fact, they are doing.
Next speaker, please.
Hello again, my name is Admiral. I just want to say that I'm against this too as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My person uses the name Audra, the new Dr. Death. I grant you that. You are Dr. Death. And have you heard that you
Audra,
will
please pause for a second.
I can talk to whoever I want. Don't you
can you pause the
freaking
time?
sit here.
Please speak to one of the recommendations on the item. The character of our staff is not relevant to the, no, it is not. Audra, this is your first this is your first warning. You are welcome to continue speaking on the topic. If you speak about any staff member that is off topic, and your time will be forfeited. You can continue her time.
So I'm confused because the people that do the reports for you, I'm not allowed to address, even though they're the ones doing the report. So Dr. Death doing the report, I'm talking to you.
You can talk.
I'm talking to you.
I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
You can talk to any of the board members.
Sure, I'm talking to you.
So that
I'm
is
talking
fine.
to you about your staff, because your staff are the ones that are doing the
Audra,
reports.
you cannot talk to us about our staff. You can talk to us about the item.
How? I'm sorry. So you can determine what I can talk about? I'm asking you a question.
Okay, your time is forfeited. Audra, please leave the podium or we're going to have to stop the meeting and have you leave. Okay, please leave the podium. Please leave the podium. Okay, this meeting is in recess.
That's not legal, Tara.
reconvene.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We will start with our first caller.
All the build, let's say the funding doesn't authorize rehab buildings, and a one-year application process. That's the government assuring itself that the problem won't be solved for a few years. I hope the PSH grant, by the way, allows 3D and container houses. That's a lot quicker. I see that the authorized projects, you have only one substance use treatment center. What about East County? And you have only one children's crisis center. We'll need more for all the problems you know about, but you only study them, take the can down the road, and then you confuse everyone with all your ever-changing rules.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and I wanted to remind you guys that you have $356 million in ARPA funding that can be used for the matching funding required for this program. So, and you can do it and just say we're going to, fund things for the next 10 years and put that money aside so you could always have your thing. So that's not a problem. So here it is. This is the thing of how we're supposed to end homelessness and help all the homeless people who have behavioral and mental health issues and people with substance abuse and people coming out of jail. This is a big, huge, all-inclusive thing. So myself, when I look at where is there flat land that's publicly owned when you're flying on an airplane and you look out the window, look at all those reservoirs. I think this is our opportunity to put forth another 1,000 tiny homes and say we're going to do it for, and instead of being a public project, this will.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Truth, there's only one way I can give a yes to this item. If both BS Director Bergman and Tara will be locked up in these behavioral health programs. I'm sorry if that sounds like an enigma wrapped in a slice of pizza, but I just want the best for the county. And by the way, Bergman, you said Prop 1 was passed in 2004. It was actually 2024. That's an example of psychosis. I'm against any tribal nation being affected by any of this state-sponsored multi-billion-dollar nonsense. I also don't want veterans harmed. And if the phrase diverse communities means government targeting people of color like they always do, absolutely no to that too. $1.8 billion of taxpayer money can go to for-profit businesses. So if there's profit in homeless people being locked up, does anyone believe there's going to be any real solutions? Bergman said this was about anticipating demand. No, it's about creating supply, hence SB 43 and miscare court, which locks up homeless people. Once again, this item has zero details, no patient count, no success stories, no spending limits, and no evidence that anything the county does works. The only positive, more laughable lines from Bergman if he's asked any questions. Thank you, no to this item. And your 1 minute shift.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you so much. On item 22, any comments or questions from any of the supervisors? Okay, I have one comment. Just want to say I think this is really important. We obviously need these beds. We need these facilities. I think you said 72 to 96 new beds. I don't think it's going to be enough, but it's obviously an important step in the right direction. I know when we initially talked about Prop 1 and implementation that this was a big piece of it, is getting these beds in place. So this is great. Let's do more. So thank you. With that, please call the vote. Oh, I'm happy to make a motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, second by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. Please vote. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're now on to board committee reports. So at every meeting, we have an opportunity for anyone who serves on a committee to report back what's going on your committee, any updates, report on progress, any sharing of important information. So does anyone have anything they would like to share today? Okay, seeing no hands. We are now moving on to non-agenda public comment. And actually, Ebony, we just asked, I think Andrew just stepped out, but I think it would be helpful if he came back and gave the same update we did this morning on some of the items that people had comments on.
I'm happy to provide that.
Okay, fantastic. So maybe before we move to non-agenda public comment, I know that there was an update provided this morning on a question that we've received a lot of comments on, which is what's sort of the status of the situation with those horses and our animal welfare services. This has definitely been voiced by a number of commenters. So any update that the CAO could provide would be very helpful.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with the public the work that's being done by the Department of Animal Services in regards to the welfare of the horses at Artesian Road. I am happy to report that our Department of Animal Services has been out twice within the last month to check on the welfare of these horses, and they are reported to be in good condition. We will share additional information as we conduct additional welfare checks, but again, just want to provide the public with the assurance that there are active reviews that are conducted by the Department of Animal Services to conduct welfare checks. Thank you.
Can you just clarify, you said they've been out to visit how many times and when?
There have been at least 2 visits within the last 30 days.
By our staff?
By our county staff, the Department of Animal Services, correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so clerk, can you please call the remainder of the non-agenda public speakers?
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 39 remaining requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. That's 7 in person and 32 requesting to speak by phone. For any individual that requested to speak by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'd like to invite forward the first 3 individuals, Elizabeth, Chris Pearson, and Zorair Fahim. If I've called your name, please come forward. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Jacobelli. I am a voting constituent in District 4, Monica Steep. And I've been here before, and I know you just talked about Animal Services coming out 2 times this month to check on the horses on Artesian Road in Rancho Santa Fe. Well, if the horses were doing as bad as what I have, the documentation that I have seen, and the way they have been a month ago, there's no way they can be doing better right now. I wish we could see a full report of what the Animal Services did. Did they come onto the property? Did they look at the animals, or did they just drive by? Or did they just do what they do for these other animal things and say, oh, they have maybe some moldy hay, they have maybe some dirty, filthy water there, and they're okay. So, again, Supervisor Tara Lawson, why aren't you doing anything about this? Something needs to be done. Why didn't you do something sooner? This has been going on a year. It's shameful when animals are suffering and no one is doing anything about it. If it was a child, I think everybody would be doing it. It's something, an older person, a person with a disability, just a person in general. Someone wouldn't be letting them live like this. These beings happen to be born in horses' bodies, so they should be treated no differently. And there's dogs there too. And it is a voting year. It is an election year. So, Tara, if you want to be voted, And again, you really need to do something.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite 3 additional speakers, Lori Michaels, Dorothea Flanagan, and Mike. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Zora Fahim, President and founder of Los Angeles Alliance for Animals. As a voting constituent, District 5, I'd like to thank Supervisor Desmond for all the wonderful work you do in our community. Thank you so much. I would like to urge the supervisors that animal cruelty should not be tolerated in our county, and we must hold perpetrators accountable to the highest standards of the law. My question to Public Safety Group is, which animal control officer, the ones who recently mentioned no violations on Deborah Barkley's property, has more than 2 years of horse experience? The number would be 0. Is this the same animal control officers that did welfare checks from the road, welfare checks of the horses in the barn whom you could not see from the road while you lied to the media and the community that everything was satisfactory when it was not? Because during that time, workers mentioned to me that the manure was waist deep in the stalls. Is this the time that animal control did not do any visits on Deborah Barkley's property after there was no welfare checks during the time of 5/7/2023 and 7/19/2023 after allegations of egregious animal cruelty of emaciated horses dying without being euthanized, even though there was a vet that offered to euthanize this horse but was refused? So this horse suffered. In addition to horses limping, lame, underweight, again, this horse suffered in the mud for hours, and your officers allowed it. Only in San Diego County would you see this cruelty. Why is the county of San Diego being complicit in animal cruelty? Recently in Grant County, Washington, an emaciated horse was euthanized, and there was charges sought against the owner similar to this horse above. An agency actually doing their job would have prosecuted this owner, euthanized this horse, and also removed all the animals. However, since you have failed the animals and they're still being neglected, laws are being violated based on my equine expert. This is absolutely unacceptable. Thank you. Can't even look up.
Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please. If I've called your name, please come forward.
Look at people when they're talking to you.
Dorothea Flanagan, Master of Arts in Educational Leadership. I'm upset about that visual. Anyway, I'm here to state the problem, state the solution, and find out what this board is going to be doing about it, because it can be solved. It's the NCTD's bus stops outside of city limits that are graffitied on a regular basis, and they have created an attractive nuisance of 7-foot by 9-foot metal backdrops to benches that should just be on a cement slab. Other cities have recognized this problem to remove the attractive nuisance. The buses are 98% empty that run to Fallbrook. I am in Jim Desmond's district, Gopher Canyon, but East Vista Way specifically is where we have burned through a lot of money with chemical removers, paint, and supplies to do the jobs. There's 2 groups doing this. I called NCTD. I called the DWP. All are passing a buck around. Oh, that's private. The county says we don't do that. And the bus district says, oh, you contact your nearest city because that has an influence to them that they should come out and do your bus stops. There are 7 bus stops on East Vista Way outside of Vista. Never used, maybe once a month by one person, and within not even 3/4 of a mile. Like, we don't need them.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker, please. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the final speaker in person, Luke.
Mike here. Yeah, going back to the problem with the KPBS hit job on some of my friends that come in here. we experienced a hit over the weekend, and it was pretty devastating. It could have been, and that's part of the problem.
Many men, like old men, wish death upon me. Blood in my eye, dog, and I can't see. The president is what I'm destined to be, but Democrats trying to take my life away. Put a hole in my ear, now you go. Put a call into all my security. Better watch how you talk when you talk about me, cause I'll come and take your life away. Many men, that's a lot of men. Many men, all the men wish death on me. Lord, I don't cry no more. Don't look to the sky no more. Have mercy on me. These pussy Democrats put money on my head. Go get your refund, motherfucker, cause I ain't dead. I'm the orange in a fruit bowl that ain't been found. I'm the Republican king, and I ain't been crowned. When I rally, something special happens every time. I'm the greatest, something like America in its prime. I rip the concrete jungle, I ain't never been humble. This race hot, cause I stay ready to rumble.
During our lunch break out there, I was approached by a man that took umbrage about my shirt, and he actually had the nerve to tell me, "I'm sorry we missed. Sorry we missed." If there's anything to be said about that, that person and those people are the ones who have the problem with society today. And those are the ones who have the problems.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hey guys, Luke here. And I've been coming in here for 3 years now. I don't often step to the microphone. When I do, it's because I got something to say. I've been sitting out here recording you guys, all of you, for years now. Not you, Monica, not so much. You're new. But it's shameful. At the last meeting I was at, there were some people that hadn't been here before, and they were sitting right behind me. And they said, "Why won't they look at me? Why won't they look at the speakers? What are they doing? Are they not supervisors? Are they not supposed to be supervising the meeting?" Now, Tara, let's get on her. Let's get on Tara for this. I've been recording you a lot lately. You stare at your lap during the whole meeting. You refuse. Thank you for looking at me now. I have hours and hours and hours and hours of you ignoring your duty to pay attention to the people. And you have the gall to go on KPBS and put us down. The people bring in the truth to the people. The news won't do it. Clearly KPBS won't. You have the gall to talk shit about us, and you refuse for us to talk shit about the people who work for you? Mara Elliott said, City Attorney Mara Elliott's First Amendment overview and Attorney David Loy supporting public comment towards staff, which is a right in the Brown Act in the Constitution to talk about the people who work for you. You have no right to silence us. You're breaking the law, and these sheriffs should be arresting you.
Next speaker, please.
Some afternoon. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Lori Michaels, and I live in Encinitas, and I'm on the advisory board of SNAP's Spay Neuter Action Project. In regards to the neglect of the horses and breeding dogs reported at the ranch of Deborah Barkley, that we just heard enforcement officers had been out there and there were no incidents reported, that they were in good shape. I do understand that apparently they have yielded no violations. However, the Board of Supervisors needs to give your Department of Animal Control the resources it needs to actually enforce basic animal welfare and anti-cruelty laws. This neglect is a stain on the County of San Diego. Please direct your animal control people to do an enforcement action and remove the horses and dogs from this hoarder house, as they are in dire condition. There are many people that attest to that beyond the humane officers. As animal advocates, we don't have the power. The animals don't have the power. You all have the power. Not just for this particular egregious situation, but there are animal abuse cases all over the county. We are all looking for all of you to do the right thing. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Final call for Chris Pearson. We'll now hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. We'll start with our first caller.
My name is Heather Hyde. Death by cruelty by breeders Craig Newtwig and Deborah Barkley. They're to their so-called prize horses. They're disposed to rot on their multi-million-dollar Rancho Santa Fe property, and dogs turn into carcasses in your District Number 3, Tara Lawson-Remer. This real-time crime scene is known globally and will not stay within the bubble of San Diego County. Get the district attorney on this matter. Your supposed welfare checks are below the standard. Call in the state investigators and the federal agencies and take responsibilities for animals that are in need. They deserve better care under your watch. The definition of Penal Code 597, animal abuse and cruelty in California, where there's a fine of $20,000 or a year in prison or jail, does not even come close to what these animals deserve if these people are prosecuted. These acts of cruelty are not alleged, they're facts. We know that at least 50 to 60 range of animals that are bred on the properties have undergone malicious intent and cruelty by Craig Newtwig and Deborah Barkley, and this is just one of their properties. These crimes and felonious acts of animal welfare and animal cruelty can take many forms. Calculated decisions by the Newtwigs and Barkleys to cause great harm for these animals by not feeding them, not caring for them, and not properly housing them is creating an outrage in the community. And not only an outrage by what they're doing to the animals, but how they're also terrorizing other people in the community. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to sleep at night?
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. My name is Terry Ann Skelly. I'm a parent of 3 adult sons, county planning group attendee, and community volunteer in youth programs, especially mentoring programs at our high schools. I came today to support item 16, the role of social media in youth mental health. However, I greatly appreciated Supervisor Anderson's remarks. Many parents are concerned about the mental health challenges of young adults, especially high school students, with whom I work in mentoring programs. So we truly recognize the need for many more mental health facilities and more youth drug treatment programs around our county now. This is of utmost necessity since 90% of all drug use begins before the age of 20, dramatically affecting mental health. While we look at the influence of social media on mental health, it is important to understand that there is heavy marijuana advertising from the county storefronts on social media. In the past, I've described my grave concern regarding highly concentrated THC marijuana products that are manufactured, sold, and promoted extensively in San Diego County marijuana storefronts, social media. Add to this the actual presence of marijuana storefronts and deliveries. This social media marketing normalizes marijuana use to teens and young adults as some sort of means to avoid stress and anxiety. Definitely a priority for this Board of Supervisors should be to diminish the footprint of big marijuana in our county now to improve youth mental health. Thank you for hearing my concerns this afternoon.
Thank you. Hear from the next caller.
Barbara Gordon. I am a grandmother with 2 grandsons in college who have shared with me their peer use of marijuana and how it has negatively affected their lives. Marijuana use has contributed to their peers' poor grades, frequent skipping classes, and basic lack of motivation. My grandson have seen the detrimental effects on their friends' ability to focus, retain information, and perform academically. Marijuana use among college students has been a topic of concern due to its potential impact on their overall educational performance. Marijuana use among college students has been a topic that needs to be addressed. Research studies has consistently indicated a negative association between marijuana use and academic performance among our college students. The study goes on to say daily marijuana use among college students reached a historic high of 44%. Marijuana use during this critical period of brain development, which occurs in early 20s, can have a long-lasting effect on cognitive ability. Heavy marijuana use ultimately leads to college dropout. By understanding these factors, educational institutions and policymakers can develop targeted intervention and prevention strategies to address marijuana use and its potential consequences. Increasing the marijuana market in San Diego, in the county, all in the name of equity, will only add to the problem. I respectfully request on behalf of the young people that the county does not continue to prioritize the marijuana industry. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon. This is Peggy Walker. I'm a health educator. In the interest of children and public health, I commend the grand jury's inquiry into the impact of cannabis in San Diego. Although comprehensive assessment of cannabis's impact has been requested often, the grand jury reports no assessment has been made. I came to ask you to write this omission by follow-through on grand jury recommendation to publish reports documenting the fiscal impacts of cannabis and the impact of illegal sales, to implement strategies targeting unlicensed delivery services and smoke shops selling illicit THC products, to report the full fiscal impact on law enforcement, the impact on public health, and report how marijuana tax revenues are or will be spent. The public deserves this kind of accounting, and thank you, Supervisor Anderson, for recognizing marijuana's contribution to mental health issues earlier. The grand jury recognizes we need answers to questions about THC's impact. The county has promoted cannabis without regard to its impact on the community, even with mounting evidence of serious health, enforcement, and fiscal downsides and high social costs. Your follow-through on grand jury recommendations will show commitment to public health. Assessment will demonstrate cannabis's real impact, and a logical outcome would be the creation of a public education campaign regarding cannabis' impact on health, especially that of children and seniors. Thank you for follow-through.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. This is Ann Riddle. I came to speak in public comment because of a UT article yesterday around opioids and the cost that it is to society and the overdoses that have occurred in the county, and you all have talked about and addressed in many ways, and I know are still planning to do more. I'm reminded of a fantastic presentation I heard on opioids by a favorite public health educator, Bertha Madras, a professor of psychobiology at Harvard Medical School. She's the author and expert witness for opioids and overdoses. And she mentions in her presentation some of the reasons behind it. And she mentions profiteers and the porosity of our borders, how difficult it is to enforce, and the lack of treatment we have here in the county. I know we're trying to rectify that. But particularly she mentions that politicians waited too long to act, and they ignored the authentic voices of parents and youth workers who saw the opioid epidemic unfolding many years before we finally took action. And she is concerned that this same scenario is happening again because of the high concentrates of marijuana products that are being sold at the county's marijuana storefronts and other storefronts. And so I ask as a parent and a grandparent, we can't let this happen again, to ignore the authentic voices of people who work with young people who are telling you we do not need more marijuana storefronts here in the county. It will do a great deal of damage to our young people. Let's not put any time or energy into enabling the growth of the marijuana businesses here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Wendy Hollis.
Please go ahead.
Oh, yes. I would like to add my voice to those speaking out on the horrendous living conditions of the horses on Rancho Santa Fe. I'm wondering if these welfare checks were unannounced or were they announced? Did the people know they were coming? It's really, really hard to believe that after what has happened over the past year, that the horses are now okay and living in good conditions, because over the past year, there have been 2 dead horses. There have been eyewitness accounts of unconscionable suffering, horses living in filth and manure with protruding bones due to nutritional neglect, moldy hay, and lack of veterinarian care. Horses have been seen to be locked in stalls with feet caked in manure. Are there no consequences for the behavior of the people who are supposed to be taking care of these horses? Animal welfare laws have been violated. There must be consequences, and these horses must be saved from the suffering, the unconscionable suffering that they are now enduring. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller. Next caller is Ron McGill. Your device might be muted. And we'll come back to that caller.
My name is Lisa Jablow. I'm also going to speak about the situation on Artesian Road. Compared to other issues that you have to deal with, this should be a relatively simple fix. You send someone onto the property to actually document this dire situation and get the animals out of there. Now you report that there have been 2 visits, but the horses and the dogs are still there, severely malnourished, exposed to the elements, suffering tremendously in the heat, living in filth, feet caked in excrement, eating moldy hay when they actually do eat, bones protruding, denied veterinary treatment. Supervisor Lawson Reamer's office says the situation is being looked into, but why are the horses still there? The district attorney's office says there's an investigation happening. Why are the horses still there? The Department of Animal Services now says that they have been out there twice. Why are the horses still there? Supervisor Desmond has spoken up about equine neglect. Why are the horses still there? 2 horses have died on the property in the last year. Why are they still there? This is not rocket science. This is a simple matter of compassion for living beings who have no voice except for those of us who must continually come back to badger you into taking the necessary steps to alleviate the suffering that has gone on for far, far too long. It is time, well past time, to do more than a drive-by, and then we will happily get out of your hair, just as you would rather be doing something other than listening to us haranguing you about this. We would also love to get back to our lives. But until this situation is resolved, we are going nowhere, just like those poor animals on Artesian Road right now. I beg you, have a heart. Please help them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Samantha, and I am with Animal Alliance Network. I've been following incidents of horses being abused since January of 2024, when a horse was found dead on Artesian Road. The video and pictures I saw were appalling. These animals are not properly cared for, and they continue to be neglected. This summer, they will be dying in the summer heat. Since the horse died of neglect in January of 2024, why have there been no action or citations issued against the owners of the ranch, Deborah Barkley and Craig Netwick? Why is the county aiding and abetting in animal cruelty? Why is the county protecting this ranch? Why is Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer not taking animal abuse seriously and not removing the neglected horses on Artesian Road? We are demanding answers and transparency. These horses need to be saved and rescued. They need to be removed from Artesian Road and be taken to a sanctuary immediately. Otherwise, more deaths will occur, and you will be responsible for their deaths because you have decided to look the other way and not take any action. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller.
My name is Kara. If I was running these meetings, this would be very different. If I was running these meetings, this would be very different. If I was running these meetings, this would be very different.
Wow, what a strange surprise that Tara gives an interview last week on KPBS, and now Nora's not there, and we're all abiding by Tara the Tyrant's new rules. Well, Tara, here's some facts for your next interview. Let's talk about your absences and tardiness. January 9th, you were late 19 minutes. January 10th, late 36 minutes in your chair. January 23rd, late 27 minutes. January 24th, you were late 37 minutes. January 30th, you attended virtually. February 6th, you were late at least 24 minutes. February 7th, you were late 40 minutes. February 27th, you were late 13 minutes. And in the afternoon, you were late 28 minutes. February 28th, you were late 44 minutes. March 12th, you were late 20 minutes. March 13th, you were late 1 hour and 23 minutes. April 9th, you were late at least 57 minutes. April 10th, you were late 1 hour and 2 minutes. April 30th, you were late at least 50 minutes. May 1st, you were late in the morning 54 minutes, and then in the afternoon 30 minutes. May 3rd, you just didn't even bother to show up. May 14th, you were late in the morning by 1 hour and 10 minutes, and then in the afternoon by 40 minutes. May 16th, again, you didn't show. May 22nd, again, you didn't show. June 4th, you were late in the morning by 2 hours and 8 minutes, and in the afternoon, 10 minutes. June 5th, you were late 1 hour and 5 minutes. The last meeting, you were also late, and you were acting as vice chair, and Joel had to pop in for you and pretend he was second vice chair, but you had the time to stop for a coffee. You've been late for 89% of your meetings, Tara. The show is up. The gig is up. We quit you. You quit us. We quit you. Relationship is over. Any other?
Thank you. Now I hear from the next caller.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Megan Stewart, and as a public health advocate focused on the youth in our community, I'm very concerned with recent gun violence events. While gun violence is an incredibly complicated issue, tragedies across our nation have highlighted a disturbing pattern, the perpetrators being young, male, and regular marijuana users. This correlation, as highlighted by experts, suggests a potential link between marijuana use and violent behavior. Far from the harmless indulgence it's often portrayed as, today's marijuana is significantly more potent than decades past, making our youth more vulnerable to addiction and its associated mental health disorders, including psychosis. Studies have shown that marijuana can alter brain regions crucial for decision-making and moral judgment, potentially increasing the likelihood of impulsive and violent behavior. Stories of children that I have worked with who use marijuana and fall into isolation and mental health challenges are not unique. We've seen a significant rise of daily marijuana-related emergency room visits here in San Diego, with cases of marijuana-induced psychosis becoming alarmingly common. An honest dialogue about the impact of widespread marijuana commercialization on public safety and youth welfare is overdue. As mentioned earlier, the San Diego County Grand Jury has recently recommended that the County of San Diego develop and publish reports that document the fiscal and law enforcement impacts of marijuana legalization and develop a public education campaign that highlights the health impacts of marijuana on children and seniors. I thank you for the time and look forward to the county's response to this grand jury report.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindy Green, and I would like to comment on the artesian horse situation. Please hire Steve Lujan as the next Director of Animal Services. Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer claims her office is addressing the artesian horse issue, but the animals are still there and being neglected. Another shout out goes to Supervisor Desmond for caring about equine abuse. Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. One emaciated horse lay dying for hours in the heat last year, and another succumbed to colic, a horrifically painful condition this year. Why is nothing being done and no one being held accountable? The horses are denied adequate shelter, food, and veterinary care, and they are living in filth. It is shameful that we need to repeatedly ask for these animals to be transferred to a sanctuary to fully recover and live out the rest of their lives in peace. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes. Why are the horses still on artesian roads? You are protecting the ranch, and you're not currently protecting the abused horses. Why not? Do some proactive rescue from neglect. Let them go to a sanctuary. I wanted to talk about the free community emergency response team classes for volunteers for emergencies. So the county funds free CERT classes, but only for a portion of county residents. They discriminate against City of San Diego residents who want to get CERT, become volunteers for CERT within the City of San Diego. And the reason for that is because the city has their own fire department, and every year they have a budget. They'll have 2 CERT classes, and then what they'll do is they'll halfway through the budget, they'll cancel their CERT classes and give the money to the fire department. So nobody in the City of San Diego actually gets to get certified in CERT or volunteer for things. So the cities that don't have a fire department and unincorporated areas, people in those areas. But when I specifically asked the county, can I go in there and can I just take your class because I can't get a class within the City of San Diego, they said no, it would be illegal for me. So I would say please open up your CERT classes to everybody, and it's not fair that because of politics and, and playing with the budget, that people in the City of San Diego don't get CERT certification. I don't know what it is now, but I would say please do an audit of it and see exactly what's going on. Is there discrimination? And if there's discrimination, please just allow people within the city of San Diego to take classes through the county of San Diego for cert. And then you'd have so many more people that would be, qualified to help. There's so many people that want to help that are not allowed to help because of the city of San Diego.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hello, this is Kathleen Lippett. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm a District 2 resident, advocate of community priorities and youth. I listened to a presentation on smoke-free spaces that was made possible by a county tobacco grant. I wondered why, given smoke is smoke, marijuana was not mentioned, but immediately recognized doing so would have compromised the county's ability to continue supporting marijuana businesses in unincorporated communities. Decades of public health lessons have taught that accepting grants or any donations, whether from the state, Department of Cannabis Control, lobbying, or any money from for-profit drug companies or industry leaders with goals that undermine or thwart prevention goals. Once accepted, future public health messaging will reflect that donor bias. Gifts, grants, and donations from big alcohol, big tobacco, big marijuana, or their lobbyists that want to exploit youth for profit will influence public health messaging on behalf of the public good. There seems no other reason for why the county, having accepted grant and marijuana industry money, is no longer willing to provide or even acknowledge the vast array of harms to youth, health, law enforcement, education, workplace safety, road safety, and the environment. Thank you for letting me speak, and also thank you, Supervisor Anderson, for recognizing the importance of the role that marijuana plays in these issues with youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Educator with a focus on youth substance use prevention. And I would like to applaud the board for the conversation earlier today about litigation against social media companies for their role in the youth mental health crisis. Adding to that, I would like to point out that Capitol Hill testimony by company executives confirms that they have known about the negative mental health impacts for years. And I know this is not specific to item 16. This is not agenda public comment. But in my role as a public health educator, I talk to parents about the role of social media in glamorizing and normalizing drug use by pushing out drug-positive content to young people. In addition, Snapchat is being investigated by the FBI for its role in fentanyl poisoning deaths. Victims' families say that drug dealers use Snapchat because of its encrypted technology and disappearing messages. In 2023, the National Crime Prevention Council wrote a letter to the Justice Department saying Snapchat has become a digital open-air drug market, allowing drug dealers to market and sell fake pills to unsuspecting tweens and teens. Local governments, the federal government, and law enforcement must do all it can to hold companies like Snapchat accountable for the way they are protecting drug dealing on their sites, and in cases where they're not cooperating with law enforcement in investigations of fentanyl deaths for products that were sold through Snapchat, we must do all that we can to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, the speaker is Kelly McCormick. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a parent and public health educator focused on drug prevention, primarily among our youth and young adults. I, like you, appreciate the UT article published this weekend referencing a report by the grand jury stating San Diego police and should jointly crack down on the illicit cannabis market and the permitted marijuana marketplace that aren't paying their taxes and are selling illegal products. The grand jury recommends the county develop and publish reports that document the fiscal and law enforcement impacts of legalization and the health impacts of cannabis use on children and seniors. Parents like me are grateful for the recommendation to develop public education campaigns that highlight these impacts. Regarding health impacts, there has been a significant increase in ER visits among seniors regarding overdosing or negative prescription interactions, and an unprecedented number of hospitalizations of young children who ingested the product. The grand jury report emphasizes the influence the drug has on youth and how the negative effects are lasting, permanently changing the brain as it's being developed, affecting attention, decision-making, learning, memory, and motivation. It also points out that marijuana use in young people is linked to a higher risk of developing psychosis and psychotic disorders. I thank the grand jury for bringing attention to this devastating matter and look forward to the county's assessment and documentation of studies linked to the results of permitting 5 marijuana businesses with their many deliveries in our backcountry on young adults' mental and physical health and impact on the county's health and emergency services. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Sarah, FAFO. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Perfect. So I just want to say, FAFO, you all fucked around, now you're going to find out. Violating our constitutional rights is a ground for a federal lawsuit. Claudia, you have been bar-grieved on a state and federal level. You are now fired. You are all committing treason, fraud, bribery, human trafficking, and murders. Sheriff, you're all in violation of your oath, committing treason and the Constitution. That's on grounds for an individual federal lawsuit. What's comical to me is that y'all fucked yourself. I mean, come on, it's all documented, reported, and recorded. All I could say is California is flipping red, and see you soon in court.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
My name is Wendy Marcus Minovitz, and I would also like to speak on behalf of the artesian horses. Despite what the enforcement officer earlier said, which I find very hard to believe, I am sickened, disgusted, and appalled by the lack of compassion and decency given to innocent horses and other animals suffering on the property of Craig Netwig and Deborah Barkley. They are being subjected to horrific abuse and neglect daily. Observers have witnessed horses living in filthy conditions, and they are not given any shelter during extreme weather conditions. Many of these horses are skeletal from lack of any food, let alone proper nutrition, or do they receive veterinary care. Their hooves are caked in the manure that is not properly disposed of. At least 2 horses have suffered agonizing deaths. The rest are at the risk of the same if nothing is done to help them. Please, I urge you to bring maximum charges against Craig Netwig and Deborah Barkley. Their interactions with any animals should be limited as much as legally possible. Please allow the relocation of these innocent, voiceless animals. How can anyone turn a blind eye to such suffering? Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Amit Galatia.
Please go ahead.
My name is Amit Galatia. I am an animal advocate, community organizer, and a concerned member of the 4th Supervisor District. I, like many others, am here to implore San Diego County officials to assist the neglected horses and dogs residing on the Rancho Santa Fe property owned by Deborah Barkley and Craig Newtwick. It's painfully obvious that these animals are not getting their basic needs of food, water, and shelter met. It's also clear that the caretakers of these animals are breaking California law, specifically 597B. Before more animals suffer, I urge the County Board of Supervisors to demand that the Department of Animal Services, the Poway Sheriff Station, and the District Attorney rescue the remaining animals from these properties, bring charge against those accountable for this cruelty, and conclude this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller. The next caller is Sue Cohn. Your device might be muted. We'll come back to that caller.
Truth, at the last Wednesday meeting, I said I was tired of the toxicity. Then this happened.
Being here and listening to this is just so upsetting and toxic.
Well, I also tire of Tara's toxic lies. On January 23rd, when I called out the Union Tribune for their hit pieces upon speakers and their snooping operation upon me, I said, quote, I don't know if it's just media or there's some reps behind it, but I don't have to like or agree with anybody or their behaviors to see a clear divide and conquer censorship agenda going on, and I will never support the suppression of free speech or be scared into submission, end quote. It has always been Tara that's wanted to censor people's First Amendment rights. In 2021, she called for reducing speaking time to 30 seconds. Last year, Tara called for 60 seconds, but that failed twice. On July 1st, Tara's allies at KPBS had their perfectly timed hit piece full of slanderous, accusation-filled polemics amid critical facts in order to disparage and discourage people from speaking and to justify Tara's tyrannical one-minute censorship. When Tara literally degrades these meetings of political theater, she has rendered incivility as an inevitability. Is it civil for Tara to look down while people speak, or to always arrive late and leave early, or to lie about abused horses, or to lie to KPBS saying that she regularly hears anti-Semitic rhetoric and that people say supervisors should go to Auschwitz? In my 2.5 years of participating at every meeting, I've never heard that. Tara also told KPBS that if she was running these meetings, this would be very different. What a coincidence. But I know Tara so well that I told people days ago that she'd be chairing today and cutting speaking time. Tara's using that trash article to justify taking advantage of Nora's medical condition to do a hostile takeover of the chair position. It's disgusting and low. A deep pit of lies seeping in the illegality of terror. But the law is on the side of freedom for all. From the California Constitution, quote, every person may freely speak on all subjects. A law may not restrain or abridge liberty of speech, end quote. There will be lawsuits, and thank you, Nora, for holding on as long as you could, despite the plot against you.
Thank you. Now hear the next caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle May. I am a constituent based in Encinitas, and I just want to echo what the many, many requests that we've heard today, not only today, but for well over a year now, to finally do something, anything, to help the poor horses and dogs at the Barkley property in Rancho Santa Fe. So important that as a compassionate society, we speak up for the voiceless and enforce the laws that protect them. Many busy people, including myself, have taken the time to voice their concern for these animals. We have all come together because we cannot stand the idea of what they are enduring. It's unconscionable that more effort has not been made to save these animals from so much unnecessary suffering and what is sure to otherwise be long and painful deaths. You, and only you, have the power to save these animals. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
This is Sue. I'm calling about the horses and dogs on Artesian Road.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm calling to voice my opinion and to agree with what everyone else has been saying about the conditions of these poor sentient animals. It's horrific. what they're allowed to have to live with. And the people that own the property need to be sent to prison, and they need to be not allowed to deal with any animals at all in the future. These animals have not been taken care of. They feel pain. They have suffered. And someone needs to get them off the property and take them to sanctuary, get them veterinary help, get them fed, watered, and housed. Please, please, take care of them very soon before they all die. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Ron McGill. I'm a speech pathologist, voting constituent, and I'm calling also about the animals on Artesian Road. I'm calling to ask that the laws be enforced. Penal Code 597 has been cited before in this meeting. It's cruel. Animal cruelty is punishable by a fine of up to $20,000 and 3 years in prison. And if nothing else, animal neglect, which this very much also is punishable by 6 months in jail and a fine of $1,000. None of that has occurred. These welfare checks, supposed welfare checks, no one knows what those really consisted of in actuality. And I'm just asking that the job be done that is the law. The Animal Cruelty Prosecution Unit was launched by Stevens, the DA, and it appears to be lip service. I mean, why is it not implemented that these animals are, their lives are spoken for and the law is followed, and that there are prosecutions for these egregious violations? If I burned down someone's house and the police knew I did it, would they do nothing and then come to my house in a month and say, oh, everything looks fine, he's not burning houses down now? No, they wouldn't. I would go to prison, and rightfully so. Likewise, these egregious animal abusers need to be prosecuted for their crimes. So please, please, uphold the law. It's there for a reason. The DA has a task force in place. Let's make this happen. Please, please. Listen to what we're saying. There's more animals that will die in triple-digit heat that's around the corner. I really appreciate your time. I know you have a lot on your plate. Thanks for everything. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Yes. Hi, my name is Tiffany Brunelli, and I'm also calling about the horses on at the ranch that are not being properly cared for. And thank you for the update that there were two inspections done in the last 30 days. It'd be great if we could find out the dates and the times, because that's not consistent with the photos and the information that I and others have seen online. And even being no type of vet tech or anything to do in the animal field, any layperson can tell that those horses are not being properly taken care of. And if animal control is unable, for whatever reason, to do their job, then let's get a special prosecutor assigned or get the DA involved. But I'm sure we all have, how many calls have there been today? 10, 12 people speaking? I'm sure you would rather not be hearing from us, and we would rather not be checking in since 9 a.m. to find out what time to call in. So please, somebody, let's do the right thing and get these horses moved and get this taken care of, because we're not going to let it go, and we're not going to be told that they went out twice in the last 30 days and everything's fine, when that's obviously not true. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, my name is Brittany Michelson. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. I'm Brittany Michelson, campaign specialist for captive animals at In Defense of Animals, an international animal protection organization with a 41-year history and more than 250,000 supporters. I'm calling in regards to the Artesian Road horses that are being neglected. Why has the San Diego County of Animal Services not removed all the horses and dogs after an emaciated horse died on Deborah Barkley in March 2023? In addition, this year, when a horse died of excruciating pain from colic, Animal issues are very important to our San Diego members who are voting constituents, and we implore you to please consider animal welfare as a priority in your county. LA County Animal Control has a major case unit investigating and prosecuting animal cruelty cases that consists of very dedicated and hardworking individuals, one of the best animal cruelty units in the entire state. They recently submitted a case to Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon to push for charges against Damian Wesley, the owner of Compton Animal Rescue. He's being charged with 25 felony counts of cruelty. Other municipalities are prosecuting animal cruelty. Please do the same and remove all the horses and dogs to be sent to sanctuary that animal activists already have placement for. Thank you for your valuable time.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Kevin Stevenson. So I'm speaking in regards to the Supreme Court decision from a few weeks ago. Unfortunately for America, they voted 6-3 to allow for the criminalization of homeless encampments, homeless people on public streets, public sidewalks, regardless of whether there is shelter or not. Now, of course, I have voiced my opposition to policy, anything having to do with criminalization of the homeless in the past, and I stand by that. And I find it really morally reprehensible seeing the bipartisan douchery from people like whether it's Democrats like Todd Gloria or Republicans like my county supervisor Jim Desmond, celebrating this ruling as if it's at all good and as if it isn't cruel and inhumane. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Criminalization of the homeless does not work. Now, unfortunately, me saying that is now irrelevant because now people like my mayor, Dane White, and El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells are going to feel emboldened in their cruel, inhumane stance on this issue. By the way, it's worth noting, Dane White used to be homeless, so he's a traitor in that regard. I find that pretty morally reprehensible. And Jim, don't think I forgot, don't think I haven't seen your tweets. I know you were celebrating this decision. You and your right-wing buddies are happy that we can legally criminalize homeless people now, as if they haven't had it rough as it is. We need more housing. We need adequate housing in place.
Thank you. Now hear from the final caller.
Hello, my name is Lori, and I'm calling to speak about the horses on Artesian Road. Supervisors, we ask you please hire Steve Lujan as the next Director of Animal Services. Please be a part of the hiring process when it relates to the next Director of Animal Services. We're asking Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remmer to take animal cruelty seriously. The neglected Artesian Road horses must be removed. I heard earlier the site was visited and the horse is said to be in a sustainable environment. Yet in March 2023, an emaciated horse died on the property. On January 24th, 2024, another horse was found dead from colic, which causes great suffering. If a horse is found dead, emaciated with protruding bones, that does not sound like a sustainable environment. Currently, the Artesian horses languish outdoors in untenable, record-breaking, sweltering heat without adequate protection from the elements. The heat will very likely continue to escalate. This does not sound like a sustainable environment. In fact, it sounds like an extremely unsustainable environment. Why have the horses not been removed to an environment in which they will be fed and properly cared for? Thank you to Supervisor Desmond for speaking up against equine neglect. The Department of Animal Services needs an equine veterinarian to examine all the horses on Artesian Road as soon as possible to spare these animals further suffering and harm. These horses cannot remove themselves to a safe environment. It is up to us to protect them. Up until now, it appears we have failed to do so, and it is time to change that. Please be part of the solution to end the neglect and suffering of these animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this afternoon. We'll now move on to those individuals that requested to speak on the closed session matters. We have 8 individuals that requested to speak, 5 in person and 3 requesting to speak by phone. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with the individual in favor, followed by those in opposition. Again, keep your comments to the cases listed under item 23 for a closed session. I'd like to invite forward Allison, followed by Michael Brando, Mark, Consuelo, and Admiral. If I've called your name, please come forward. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Mark, regarding proposed litigation, I commend City Attorney Mara Elliott's First Amendment overview and Attorney David Loy supporting public comment towards staff, which is a right in the Brown Act and Constitution. Tara drastically overstepped any authority that she would have had today. 954.3c, of the Brown Act clearly states that we have the right to critique policies, programs, and omissions. You simply don't have the right to tell people, as I said before, earlier. I'm getting tired sitting here so long listening to so many horse things, so I feel bad for those people. You just don't have the right to tell people what an omission is. That's up to them. Obviously, you omitted it, and they're saying that they feel that this is an omission. They have a right to say anyway they think it relates to any agenda item. But anyway, Mara Elliott's First Amendment overview was 3 weeks ago, and she was directly addressing this issue. So Tara, that's looking down right now and won't even look at me, for you to state that people can't address your staff, she specifically said they can. In fact, unfortunately, however much you may not like it, they have the right to be derogatory, to be profane, to curse, to express their emotion. Of course, threats are not appropriate, but that was stated in her overview. And furthermore, 1 minute on any topic is simply not reasonable under the Brown Act, period. There's no agenda item that could be addressed in 1 minute properly, period. If you don't think so, try it sometime.
Next speaker, please.
Okay, so yeah, Consuelo. Anyone who supports censorship is an enemy of the people and free speech. It's just so sad, everything that's happening. And it's even sadder that people feel like they don't have to come in only when the boot is directly on their face and they're being affected by a certain subject. It's just, yeah, people need to start paying attention to everything, because that is why things have gotten the way they have. People are protected when they shouldn't be, just because of their, being social or socioeconomically high, they're fucking rich. That's the bottom line. They're rich, they're untouchable, they're connected. Just like Tara, apparently, she's definitely connected and has hit pieces done on people who are actually paying attention. But yeah, like somebody mentioned, it is in fact, it's, what's it called?
And it's unbelievable.
No, it's, I can't think of the word right now. It's voting season. It's stupid, and people keep doing it. They keep perpetuating the same system that keeps them enslaved and taxed up the wazoo. And we're paying for all this until the day people wake up. It's not going to change. Yeah. So regarding the litigation, let's see. 14 seconds. I'm done.
Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Miss Allison. I don't want to be here to attack anyone. I have some issues with your homeless solutions folks, and I'd appreciate speaking with one of your staff members. I have some issues with your behavioral health department with Mr. Bergerman's office. I don't like to defame anyone's character, but my experience, my personal experience with your behavioral health department, Mr. Luke Bergerman's office, for the past 4 years, my experience is that he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. We were retaliated against when we were in a specific program with the behavioral health folks. And when we asked a lot of questions, we were discharged from the program. So I'd appreciate speaking with one of the staff members about the Department of Behavioral Health and the folks that oversee the Homeless Solutions Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Final call for Admiral or Michael Brando. Again, I'll ask you to keep your comments to the cases listed under closed session.
Hello. I just want to say I'm not in support of that, and I don't agree with censoring social media. I think everybody should have the freedom to express themselves.
Can you please state your name?
Oh, sorry. Robert Rivera.
Admiral.
So what I want to say is I do support people, freedom of speech, and I don't believe that we should be censoring social media. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from the individuals that requested to speak by phone. Start with our first caller.
All above, I am sure that you will consider potential legal action, such as Tara suddenly changing the speaking rules and bypassing public process. Tara, you are infringing on our free speech and assembly rights. Gun violence in Pennsylvania does not justify this at all. This is your first warning. And please resign as Mr. Sanchez suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll now hear from the final caller.
Hey, it's true. Final caller. Case A is Hilltop Group versus the county, and case B is DeJong versus the county. I've spoken about these cases before. Case C is AmerisourceBergen Drug Corp. and Moore versus the county. Most likely for the county's previous frivolous lawsuit claiming that AmerisourceBergen helped cause the opioid catastrophe while ignoring the doctors that prescribed the drug. And case D is anticipated litigation. This is where Mark and everyone else can talk about litigation omissions and litigation theories or working hypotheses on what it could possibly be regarding. I'm actually concerned that certain supervisors may be personally sued for their potential involvement with certain media outlets to discourage, and demoralize people from exercising their right to redress their government. I've been looking at campaign finance disclosure documents to find some proof of the who, what, when, where of the situation, and I will continue to look wherever necessary so that the county as a whole will not face anticipated litigation in the near future. It'd be much better if only one supervisor was guilty of conspiracy to deprive people of their rights versus a collective guilt. And to add to Mark's point, San Diego City Attorney Mara Elliott's First Amendment overview said, quote, Brown Act rules, legislative body may not prohibit criticism. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievances, according to the U.S. Constitution Amendment 1. Every person may freely speak, write, and publish his or her sentiments on all subjects. A law may not restrain or abridge liberty of speech or press, according to the California Constitution, Articles 1 and 2. During public comments, people can swear, use hate epithets, and say horrible things about council members, staff, and others. First Amendment protections. Council may not censor speech by prohibiting citizens from speaking, even if their speech is or may be defamatory, end quote. As La Mesa Mayor Mark said, government should be an inclusive place for all, and the only way it can be inclusive is freedom of speech and thought. I don't like.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on the consent items.
On the closed session item.
Closed session, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will now convene to closed session. Take about 10 minutes, so at 4:45. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Adjournments in memory. Thank you very much. And that's obviously presented by Supervisor Jim Desmond. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I've got two adjournments today, unfortunately. Adjournment, and first one's adjournment in memory of Michael Lynn Adams. Michael Lynn Adams was 78 years old in Valley Center. He passed away peacefully on May 28th of 2024. He was loved by his wife Eileen of 55 years and his entire family, including all of his kids and his grandchildren. Mike loved his country, and he served his country as a junior lieutenant officer in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. He worked at the City of Escondido Public Works Department for 2 decades. He held 2 master's degrees in science and engineering, worked as a public works director for the City of Flagstaff, Arizona. He rejoined the City of Escondido as the assistant city manager. He faithfully served as a church administrator for Valley Center Community Church and served as a Valley Center church deacon. Mike was appointed to the Valley Center Palma Valley Unified School District Board and served faithfully on the Board of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He enjoyed painting portraits of people and friends. He loved life, people, and selfless acts of service, enjoyment of family-centric meals and reunions. Mike was loved by the community, and he will be missed by all. Our deepest condolences go out to his family and to his friends. The second adjournment today is in memory of Frederick W. Pierce. Frederick W. Pierce IV passed away suddenly in June. Fred Pierce, he served as the president and CEO of Pierce Education Properties and was a leader and a visionary and dedicated advocate for student housing industry. He was a trailblazer in the student housing sector while being known for its commitment to quality, student well-being, and innovation. The student housing industry has lost a passionate and articulate voice. Pierce's leadership style was characterized by his compassion, integrity, and unwavering dedication to making a positive impact. Genealogy was among Fred's hobbies, and records show that he has quite a lineage, tracing his ancestors back to the Mayflower and 7 U.S. presidents, including George Washington, Franklin Pierce, his namesake, and Abraham Lincoln. Fred Pierce was also known for his generosity and commitment to philanthropy, supporting several initiatives aimed at improving educational opportunities and quality of life for students and their families. Just last year, the Pierce family celebrated at the Pierce Greek Life Center, named in his honor, a $3 million endowment for the alumnus, Frederick and his wife, Christine, for them to enhance and grow fraternity and sorority life at San Diego State University. His company says that it's an honor that it will honor Pierce's memory by redoubling its efforts to support students and communities and continue the work he is so passionate about. Pierce's amazing legacy will live on for generations. He will be greatly missed, and we extend our heartfelt condolences to his family, to his wife Christine, and the Pierce Education Properties family. Just a quick little thing. Fred was just such a supporter of San Diego State. His car was painted in Aztec colors. He had greatly contributed to all of the sports and at San Diego State, and he will be sadly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Today's final adjournment will be presented by myself in memory of Dia Hurston. Today, I adjourn this meeting in memory of an outstanding leader in the theater community, Dia Hurston. After 15 years of fighting terminal cancer, she passed away on Sunday. Earlier this year, Dia sat before us as she accepted a proclamation from our board. She was an agent of change who truly uplifted many voices, inspired a new generation of artists. As one of the few Black voices in San Diego's theater community, she spoke her truth and brought to fruition plays that shed some light rarely seen in American theater. New Village Arts in Carlsbad named their theater space after her, and was exciting to see that historical moment just last year. You will be missed, my friend, but I know your legacy will continue to have an impact. Hurston is survived by her husband, Osborne, children Jessica Hurston and John Hurston, daughter-in-law Shanta Hurston, grandsons Xavier and Cruz Hurston, her mother Doris Douglas, 2 sisters, and many nieces and nephews. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family during this difficult time.
The board will now recess into closed session to consider those matters listed under item 23 on today's regular agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out during the planning and land use session of this meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, July 17th, 2024.
And thank you. We'll take 10 minutes, so at 10 to 5.
Ms. Silva?